Good evening and welcome to the March 1st, 2016 meeting of the Milford Planning and Zoning Board. May I ask that we rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. Thank you. May we have roll call of the board from left to right, please?
Richard Lutz.
And I'm Anthony Sutton, Chairman of the Board. Welcome again to the March 1st, 2016 meeting. We're joined by David Sulkus, City Planner, and Phyllis Leggett, Board Clerk. First on the agenda is new business. It is the application relative to 189 Hillside Avenue. Petition of Rafael Amaya, architect, for coastal area management site plan review approval to construct a single-family residence on map 59, block 795, parcels 69 and 70, of which Susanna Daggs is the owner. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Rafael Amaya. I'm an architect. My office is located at 284 Racebrook Road in Orange. I'm here tonight on behalf of Miss Suzanne Daggs. Her residence is a single-family residence located at 189 Hillside Avenue in Milford. Map 59, block 795, parcel 6970. This property is in an zone R5. On August 28, 2011, Hurricane Irene initially impacted the house, leaving it essentially unusable. After Superstorm Sandy, the structure miraculously was left standing and has been an eyesore since then. This proposal consists of the demolition of the existing dwelling, which was constructed below the 100-year base flood elevation, and to construct an elevated single-family residence above the 500-year base flood elevation plus 1 foot of freeboard to the bottom of any structural member. The finished floor will be at elevation 19.48 approximately, with an average grade of elevation 7.1. The new structure will be compliant with all applicable setbacks. There is an issue with the site plans that have been submitted, but as you saw, the letter from the engineer basically says that all the setbacks have been complied with. And I'm going to go down the line. The lot is 3,700 square feet, 3,737. It's obviously smaller than the required 5,000. There's a minimum setback of 10 feet. The proposed structure is at 10.5. Side yards are 5 foot and 10. In this case, is 16.8 and 13. Rear yard is required 20 foot as required, We have 25 foot to the house and 20.1 to the stair landing. Maximum height in stories is 3 stories. We are proposing 2. The maximum height is 35, and the maximum height provided is 34.8. Building floor area required is 45%. We're putting 21.5%. And the lot coverage is 65%. We're using 36.1%. The existing is at 2,250 square feet, consisting of a 2-bedroom unit in the first floor and a 3-bedroom apartment in the second floor. Contrast this with what we're proposing, which is a 1,993 square feet unit, including an in-law apartment. Note that the new elevated structure has a mean roof height of 32 feet 11, 2 foot 1 less than the maximum allowed. We're proposing underground chambers that have been designed according to the City of Milford guidelines. And all items have been reviewed by Public Works, Engineering, and Planning and Zoning, and satisfied at this point. Accordingly, there is no anticipated increase in the volume of stormwater runoff. I have with me correspondence with the engineer, with the city engineer, first with Mr. Wasserman, who's no longer working in Milford, and also with Mr. Pidulski, have satisfied his requirement. There were 2 lots originally, and they have been consolidated into 1. This work has already been completed. Other work that has been done is the review of wetlands. No wetlands have been found on the site. The SHPO, the State Historic Preservation Office, has already reviewed this property as well and has determined there's no impact in the National Register of Historic Places. So at this point, I think we have fulfilled all the requirements for this property, both by the state and the city. And I am requesting that we're given approval from this board to proceed with the work proposed tonight. I wanted to show you in the plans of the existing versus the proposed.
Mr. Amaya, if you could bring the microphone with you as you discuss the plan.
Is that what you're asking me?
It comes off from at the bottom, right there. Yes.
The existing plans you can see in the 2 floor plans. In the first floor plan, you have 2 bedrooms. In the second floor plan, you have 3 bedrooms. Get a sense of the elevations. Versus the proposed. Versus the proposed were in this first floor plan. You can see 3 bedrooms. then on the second floor, we're depicting the in-law apartment. It's a reduced footprint. And less, a reduced square feet area of the building that we're proposing. So I request from the board approval to move forward on this proposal.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Mr. Amaya. Mr. Sulkus, are there comments from staff?
Actually, just a quick question, because I have the staff report from Steve Harris, which I would normally read, and I will read, but Mr. Amaya gave a figure that is different than what's in the report, so I just need some clarification.
Sorry,
Let me know when you're ready. You ready? Okay. I thought I heard you say during your presentation that the finished first floor area was 19-something and change.
Correct.
Okay. We have, according to Steve Harris, who did your review, he says that your plans show it at 18.35 feet.
That's to the top of the wall, top of the concrete.
Okay. Do you want me to read the staff report, or is the board satisfied with, I'm sure you received the staff report from Stephen, but if you want, I will read it. It's up to you.
Oh, no, that's okay, unless anyone on the board wants to hear that. Does anyone want to hear Mr. Sulkus read the staff report? Does anyone have questions for Mr. Amaya on the board? Mr. Grant?
I have a couple of questions. You said that you received correspondence from the city engineer. He had some particular items, and you said you thought that everything was taken care of. I just wanted to clarify a couple of the items that he had. One was he was asking for supporting calculations on the drainage. Do you know if that's been submitted to him?
My understanding, yes, it has been submitted to him. I have it here with me as well. So I can forward it, give it to you, or whatever you prefer.
All right, so you have submitted it to him.
The calculations have been shown to him, correct.
Okay. And there was another item about the seawall,
This-
about plugging one of the drainage.
Right.
Opposite, he was in question as to why that was being plugged when basically the outlets in the seawall are to relieve pressure off of the seawall so it doesn't
Yeah,
allow the water to flow
the
through.
new site plan addresses that seawall that node has been removed.
All right. And the applicant, there was a correction that was needed on the application. Has that been also corrected?
There's a note regarding the setback. Is that what we discussed earlier? Is that the question that you have? There's a note regarding setbacks that says that the new construction is 10 feet from the site.
No, that's not
Setback.
the question. The thing he had is that on the coastal site plan application, in part 3, there was said that there was no applicable,
Right.
but yet there is.
That was also revised. in accordance
And the
to that
last
note.
question I have is, would your client be willing to do a Mylar, an as-built Mylar, and submit it on record with the town and to the town clerk for a record into the city archives, into the land records?
The Mylar of the
Site
consolidated.
plan, final site plan, once it's done, do an as-built, do a Mylar of it, submit it to the city clerk, and
Correct.
put it into the city
Yeah.
land records.
Yeah.
And
Yes, the answer is yes.
Anything further from the board? Mr. Marlowe?
Possibly to Mr. Sulkus. On the second floor, I see you have it's listed as an accessory apartment on the plans. And then
Correct.
looking through the regulations for the accessory apartment, I see Mr. Sulka said it's supposed to not have separate utilities, but I see on the plans that it has separate meters for both electric and gas, and I didn't know if that was,
It shouldn't.
okay,
It's
but
spo-
it does on the drawing.
Then that would have to be removed.
Okay.
That's prohibited by the regulations.
Okay.
Because
So-
an accessory apartment
Right,
is
that-
supposed to be for a family member of the same family, and it's not supposed to be a freestanding unit.
Right, and maybe that's something that could be
Noted, duly noted.
changed.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Mr. Sulkis.
I just want to ask the applicant, in our file, we have that letter that was just the topic of discussion about what the city engineer was looking for, and you saying that things have been changed. Do you have anything in writing from the city engineer confirming that all of those changes that he wanted?
There is no, I do not have that letter from the city engineer.
So how would we know that those changes have been made?
Well, we can make, obviously, the changes have been made. I can discuss it with Mr. Dolsky, make sure that he is aware of that. Maybe you can make this contingent upon his response to ensure that we have essentially addressed his questions.
Further comment and question from the board? Mr. Nichol.
Does this new structure have a sprinkler system?
I'm sorry?
Sprinkler system, fire system, sprinklers?
Yeah. No sprinkler. No, I'm sorry. It has no sprinkler.
How about the existing seawall? Are you guys going to bring it up to make it even on both sides of your property and fix it?
The existing seawall that part is all part of the state. We're not touching that seawall. That's part of the, if you look at the site plan, you will see that that's all part of the Long Island, actually a deep has jurisdiction on it. We're not touching that.
Additional question or comment?
Yeah, question.
Mr. Lutz?
Is parking underneath the building?
Correct.
How many cars can park underneath the building?
3 cars.
Mr. Sulkis, in a situation like this with an accessory apartment, how many parking spaces would be needed?
For a single-family home, the requirement is 2 parking spaces. And again, an accessory apartment is part of a single-family home if it is granted.
Additional questions from the board? Mr. Mead?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Marlowe pointed out there is 2 separate sets of utilities meters in the beginning, and you're going to remove one set. Did you anticipate renting that accessory apartment out to a non-member of the family, or is a member of the family going to live there?
The accessory apartment is intended to be for the owner of the house. She has relatives that are that will occupy the second floor, the first floor, I should say. She will be the one who will be using the accessory apartment.
Can we get that in writing on the city land
I think you
record?
have that in writing, if I'm not wrong. Hold on a second. Let me see.
Yeah, there's a separate process for actually having an accessory apartment. So beyond the process here tonight for, if you approve the application, the applicant who owns his house is going to have to prove to the zoning enforcement officer via the regulations, the requirements of the regulations, that it in fact can be used as an accessory apartment, and they provide the evidence that it is for a family member.
Thank you.
Any further comment or question from the board? I have a question for Mr. Sulkis. With regard to certain of the points raised by the city engineer, also with regards to Mr. Marlowe and Mr. Grant, in your opinion, Mr. Sulkis, is it advisable to take up this application with conditions, or is it preferable to have additional materials in the file in writing?
That's really up to you, if you're comfortable with what you heard this evening. If you're at all not comfortable with what you heard, then, you know, I would request that, you know, the applicant provide the further information. You keep the public, you know, you keep the hearing, the application open.
Thank you. Does anyone wish to make a motion? Mr. Quish?
I would make a motion to approve with the stipulations as brought up, the utilities being put in one service. I think that might even be addressed later in the, okay, so that should be a condition of the approval. I think that was the only, okay, so the Mylar and the, oh, right, and that the city engineer, that you comply with what the city engineer, if what you submitted is accepted, then fine. If it's adjusted, that you agree to follow the city engineer's recommendations on whatever was a gap.
Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second it.
Mr. Grant? Does anyone wish to be heard on the motion? Seeing none, call the motion. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next item on the agenda this evening is a public hearing relative to zoning regulation text changes, followed by the application for 214, 224 Seaside Avenue. We have one item in old business that I think would be better suited to be taken up before we get in to the two public hearings, just to sort of from a time management standpoint. Is there any objection from the board by bringing up the application for 553 West Avenue at this time?
I have a question.
Yes, Mr. Grant.
There's no public comment or no additional comments from the applicant on this?
The public hearing was closed at the last meeting. That said, does anyone wish to make a motion relative to agenda item E4, 553 West Avenue, which is the petition of Brian Stone on behalf of Grillo Services LLC for a special exception and site plan review? Mr. Grant?
I'd like to make a motion to deny the application, and I'd just like to state why. Basically, this zone is for an office zone. It's within a residential area. It's near a school area. Industrial use of this property is, I think, far out of what would be considered an acceptable alternative to office space. So with that, I make a motion to deny.
Is there a second to Mr. Grant's motion?
Second.
Mr. Lutz? Is there discussion on the motion? Does anyone wish to be heard further on the motion?
Yes.
Mr. Lutz?
I agree with what Mr. Grant was saying. The processing of the materials on the exterior is way out of the regulations for that particular zone. However, my thought was, with a little bit of compromise, if the applicant at a future time would modify his application in such a way, when we heard you say, I really want my corporate offices there, I believed you. You know, when you said, I really want to have a retail site there, I believed you, okay? In other words, if there was no processing at that location, if there was offices and some restricted retail, perhaps, you know, I would look at it a little differently.
Thank you, Mr. Lutz. Is there any additional comment on the motion to deny the application? Seeing none, we'll call the vote on... How's that? Is that better? How's that? Is that better? I'm at volume 10 here.
You just have to pull the microphone closer to your mouth.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Excuse me, Mr. Sutton, could I say something? When Richard Lutz was talking about a modification, would that be something I'd need to make a decision on tonight or reapply?
It would be a reapplication, correct? Is that correct, Mr. Sulkus? That's it. Thank you.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Having the motion and a second, I will call the motion for a vote. All in favor of the motion to deny the application? All opposed? The motion to deny passes. Our next item on the agenda is the public hearing. Item D2, the proposed zoning regulation text changes regarding the deletion of building height in stories from regulations. Mr. Grant?
The proposal is to delete the following wording from section 3.1.4.1, figure number 2. Delete the stories. Section 3.2.4.3, 1A and B, to delete the wording stories from the regulation. Section 3.3.4.3, item 3B, to delete the wording stories from this regulation. Section 3.4.4.3, item 3, to delete the word stories from the regulation. Section 3.7.4.3, item 3, delete the word stories from the regulation. Section 3.17.4.3, item 3, to delete the words story from the regulation. Section 3.19.2.1, item 6, delete the wording stories from the regulation. Section 3.19.2.2, item 5A, delete the words story from the regulation. Section 3.20.4.3, item 3, delete the wording for stories from the regulation. Section 3.22.4.3, item 3, delete the word story from the regulation. And the last item is section 11, definitions, delete the definition for attic.
Thank you, Mr. Grant. Now, Mr. Sulkus, we would open a public hearing on this at this point. A public hearing is now open, or we are about to open a public hearing for these revisions to the regulations. Is there anyone here that wishes to speak for or against the proposed regulation changes? Sir, before you come up, please just let me do the reading of the public hearing procedure. I'd ask that anyone first who wishes to speak in favor of the changes to the regulation, please identify themselves when they approach the podium, clearly state your name and your address, and please address your comments to the commission, and keep your comments clear and succinct and, to the best of your ability, under 3 minutes. And then after that, anyone opposed to the regulation changes will have the opportunity to be heard. Thank you. Sir, do you wish to be heard? Anyone in favor of the regulation changes?
Is this on? Okay. Good evening, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Leonard Hall, and I live at 321 Anderson Avenue in Milford, and I want to speak in favor of these regulation changes. I think they'd be right for the city. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Does anyone else wish to be heard in favor of the regulations? Sir?
I'm Jeffrey Gordon from Codispoti and Associates, 263 Boston Post Road, in the town of Orange. I just want to commend the efforts of Mr. Grant and his subcommittee. There are some ambiguities and conflicts within the Milford zoning regulations that have carried through from previous issues and changes that were made along the way, and so minor housekeeping always needs to be done. And I appreciate all efforts that are made to consolidate and to make the publication easier to follow. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Does anyone else wish to be heard in favor of the changes to the regulations?
Good evening. Donna Dutko, 236 Buckingham Avenue. I just came to support your proposed changes to the text. I think it's a great idea. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there additional comments in favor of the changes to the regulation? Seeing none, I'll ask at this time if anyone opposed to the changes to the regulation wishes to speak. Seeing none, does the board have any questions for Mr. Grant? Mr. Sulkus, can we close the public hearing at this point? We will close the public hearing at this point, and the chair will entertain motions for approval of the proposed regulation changes.
I'd like
Mr.
to
Grant,
make a motion to approve the regulation changes.
is there a second? Mr. Quish? Is there any comment on the motion? I would also like to commend Mr. Grant and the Regulation Subcommittee for all the hard work they did on this issue. Does anyone else wish to be heard? Seeing none, we'll call the question for a vote. All in favor of the motion? All opposed? The motion passes. The next item on the agenda is a public hearing for 214-224 Seaside Avenue. It's the petition of Jeffrey Gordon, Codispoti and Associates, for special permit, coastal management site plan review, and site plan review to construct 7 single-family cottages and retain 2 existing single-family residences under Connecticut General Statutes 8-30G on map 35, block 432A, parcels 9 and 10, of which Eugenia Dabowski is the owner. If I may at this point, just again for the benefit of the members of the public who have joined us this evening to go over the public hearing procedure relative to this. The applicant will have the opportunity to present their application to the board and for the consumption of the public. After that, the city planner will have the opportunity to provide comment from staff, and then the members of the board will have the opportunity to question the applicant. After that point, the public will have the opportunity to comment. Similar to the regulation change public hearing, those in favor of the application, I would ask, go first, and then after that, those opposed to the application go second. And when giving your comments to the board, I ask you address them to the board and not the applicant. I ask that you make your comments succinct and to the point, because we have many people here that wish to be heard. Please try and keep your comments to 3 minutes or under, which will give us the benefit of hearing from everyone at least once. If you didn't reach everything you wanted to say in the first 3 minutes, you're certainly more than welcome to come back after everyone has had the opportunity to speak this evening and provide additional comment. That said, I'll turn it over to the applicant. Thank you.
Good evening. members of the board. My name is Christopher Cody. I'm an attorney with offices at 185 Broad Street here in Milford. I'm here this evening on behalf of Eugenia Dabowski, who is the owner of 214 and 224 Seaside Avenue. Ms. Dabowski is unmarried and has no children, and she was working as a hospital nurse at Norwalk Hospital well into her 70s. Through her hard work and thrift, she was able to acquire her personal residence and also the rental house next door, which provided her a stream of income. Unfortunately, in 2014, she had a stroke and became incapacitated, and she has conservators appointed for her. And this application, the genesis of the application, was to create a stream of rental income to care for her long-term needs. I'm here tonight with two principals from Codispoti and Associates, Jeffrey Gordon, site planner and landscape architect, and Robert Weway, the professional engineer, and also David Spear, professional engineer from DLS Traffic Engineering. And I will introduce Mr. Gordon to do the presentation.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, staff, ladies and gentlemen. Again, my name is Jeffrey Gordon. I am a landscape architect, land use planner with Codispoti and Associates, licensed here in the state of Connecticut. Codispoti and Associates has its office at 263 Boston Post Road in the town of Orange. Just a little bit about housing. Housing opportunity historically has been critical to the economic well-being of communities. When we go back even to the advent of the Industrial Revolution, people moved from farms into cities and towns, and that's where the economic base was developing. Industrial entities constructed housing to accommodate the workers. In the Northeast, this manifested itself in cottages, duplex and tenement-style homes, sometimes apartment-type housing, mill housing, company housing. Matter of fact, Slatersville, Rhode Island was the first mill village that was built maybe in the United States post-Civil War, and it was tied in with jobs. Post-war America had returning military looking to establish next-generation family life. Government housing projects actually intended to last no more than 25 years was constructed, and this was to allow families to get on their feet and to transition to the post-war economic opportunities. Some of these actually still exist today in many cities, outliving their timeline due to the fact that other good housing opportunities didn't replace them. In the 1950s, the automobile and the U.S. highway system provided access for many outside the cities, and suburban growth flourished. Levitt Brothers, among others, acquired inexpensive farmland and built 750 square feet, two-bedroom capes on 6,000 to 10,000 square foot building lots with unfinished attics that were designed for 2 additional bedrooms. Now, these houses required stoves, they required refrigerators, they required washers and dryers, and 1 or 2 cars would fill the driveways, so communities were created or enhanced. Industry and jobs grew and followed this housing. You think about it, for just $65 down, a 3% VA mortgage for a $9,500 house is what you found around 1951, 1952. This led to an economic boom. People moved en masse to the suburbs. The jobs followed. The first key was that the housing was affordable. The second key, and let's focus on this, the second key was that it was done by private enterprise, not the government that was able to develop cost-effective, safe, adequate housing. Few of us today believe that the government is going to adequately and efficiently run any program. And you look at it, many states, especially in the Northeast, including Connecticut, have come to the realization that if we're going to retain our young adults, empty nesters, we need a climate that encourages housing opportunity. So the think tanks and the policymakers, seeing the jobs and people following lower housing costs south, retirees taking their pension money and going south with them, taking the money out of the community, they looked for a way to develop housing that would be affordable to many within this area. So we find that we're in a time when some elements of society are looking to build walls to keep people of some background out or keep other religious groups out or to prohibit this or that. We see that popular opinion can fluctuate, and it can even become mean-spirited and discriminatory at times. And I'll have to tell you that I've been a part of the land use planning profession for over 40 years now. And in the Milford area, in southern Connecticut, projects ranging from retail, restaurants, shopping centers, residential subdivisions, condominiums, offices, industrial parks, schools, places of worship, done many of those. And I would say that nothing except maybe a church for a non-mainstream denomination, nothing will raise the emotional critical mass of the public than the term 8-30G. For some reason, it raises the vitriol, misinformation, and tensions tend to become heightened, and all to the misfortune of those who would be able to live in such fine developments. So with what erroneous matters are sometimes represented by a few as a scare tactic with not factual, imprecise information disseminated, it really is no wonder that a lot of people become alarmed. Just going to have an exhibit handed out to you, Exhibit A. And this ties in a little bit to Attorney Cody's presentation. Some flyers were illegally posted on area utility poles by the project site. They purported that corporate America is planning on developing this project in line with the attitude of corporate developers, lining their pockets at the expense of the safety and well-being of the community, putting neighborhood children at risk. And first, I'd like to assure everyone that this proposal is a reasonable exercise of property development that in no way will impair the safety of those on Seaside Avenue. We will further, as we go in our presentation, demonstrate why this is the case. Second, again, we'd like to go back, introduce you to the greedy developers who have been represented as those who are going to line their pockets with ill-gotten gain. Again, you were introduced to the story of Eugenia Dabowski, retired nurse. She invested in her property much like you or I might invest in a 401k, something for our old age. Unfortunately, she has a debilitating medical event that's going to require long-term care, and the revenues, as was mentioned, is proposed to care for this. And any of us who've been overwhelmed with the prospect of caring for a disabled family member or one in declining health, we're aware of the struggles associated with such challenges emotionally and financially. And the conservatives of her estate are the ones who moved forward on this to provide for her. The conservatives are Isabel Dabowski, who was raised in Milford and a longtime resident of this neighborhood, and she's not a big-time developer, but she's a pharmaceutical technician. Also, Derek Dabowski, her nephew, is a news cameraman. These are your longtime neighbors. They invested and resided in this community, and they're trying to care for one of your own and provide for a much-needed feature to the city. The property in question is 1.2 acres. It's located on Seaside Avenue. It is a half-mile walk to the beach, 2/10 of a mile walk to the United Presbyterian Church and the Driftwood condominiums on Seaside Avenue. It's 2/10 of a mile to Milford Hospital and is a half-mile walk from the Milford train station in downtown, well within areas that have been long time targeted as appropriate areas to provide housing opportunities. I'd like to have another exhibit handed out to you. It's my Exhibit B. And this is an excerpt of the city zoning map. And what it shows is this property, it's in this little yellow circle. It's in a pocket of an R12-5 single-family zone, but it's surrounded predominantly by R7-5, transitioning to R5, RMF-16 districts, and also nearby SFA-10. Now, why do I bring that up? Well, the R12-5 district yields approximately 3.5 building lots per acre. With 4-bedroom homes, you would consider 14 bedrooms per acre. The R75 district yields approximately 5.8 building lots per acre, or 20.3 bedrooms per acre if half of them are 3 and half are 4-bedroom homes. The R5 district yields approximately 8.7 building lots per acre, or 26.1 bedrooms per acre, and the RMF 16 obviously is 16 bedrooms per acre. The SFA 10 zone, which is nearby north of the site and a little bit to the west of the site, that's also like the R5 zone, 8.7 homes per acre. So you can see that as we consider the area, there are comparable densities to be found. The proposal that's before you tonight is for 9 detached homes on 1.2 acres or 7.5 homes per acre. 8 will be 2-bedroom cottages and 1 is an existing 4-bedroom home. That's a total of 20 bedrooms on 1.2 acres or 16.7 bedrooms per acre. Now, we'll also hand out Exhibit C. That's on the large board in front of you, but we have handouts as well. Analysis of similar nearby areas on Seaside Avenue and Lakeview Road show densities of 9 and 10 homes with 10 driveways. And you kind of can see that here on Lakeview Drive, here on Seaside Avenue, and then here is the subject property. They're all lined up here. And really what really helps you understand concerns of density is the amount of homes that are there, but also the amount of driveways. It's like when you're on the post road, when you have a lot of driveways, that creates uncertainty of turning motion. Somebody puts a turn signal on, you don't know which driveway they're going to turn into. They're going to turn into one of them nearby. So a lot of driveways in a small area create a possible issue in that respect. So our proposal has 9 homes and 2 existing driveways are going to remain. Now, when we think about the concerns for traffic on Seaside Avenue, we really see, again, they are attached in many respects to the number of driveways in close proximity to one another. And that, you can kind of see that highlighted along here. Also, I have another exhibit for you, would be Exhibit D. And make sure he gets a lot of exercise tonight, up and down here. And what this shows, it shows a lot of these driveways, but it also shows some have actually constructed parking lot areas on Seaside Avenue in the right-of-way where they back directly into the road. Not a driveway, but a parking strip that they paved in their front yards. And those are the type of things where you can certainly look at traffic having a concern. Our traffic engineer will address sightlines and speed later on in our presentation. Now again, the Dabowski proposal keeps the streetscape intact with the minor addition of the end elevation of a garage. All of the traffic is confined to the 2 existing driveway locations, and I can assure everyone here that we're an entrepreneurial building developer invested in the property. You would likely see the 2 houses come down and larger scale development proposed. Similar to the Driftwood condominiums at 104-108 Seaside Avenue, that would be something that you might see, or even the 15-unit development on Meadowside. Like many other 8-30G projects, that utilize triplex townhouses, and other proposals that have been before this commission are for large-scale apartment buildings. It's been our experience that smaller projects such as the one proposed, dotted through a community, have little, if any, impact. It has been my experience that often most in the public don't even know where they are. They don't even see that they exist or that they even contain an 8-30G component. Of the 9 homes, 3 will be deed restricted to remain affordable for 40 years. Attorney Cody will later explain how this will be structured. Quaint communities such as this have been successfully developed locally and throughout the country. We worked on a few of them. I'm going to give you one more handout here in this regard. It's Exhibit E. These are 2 developments that were built in Stratford adjacent to the Shakespeare Theater. One was the recipient of the Connecticut Home Builders Association Award of Excellence for Small Site Communities. Also, these type of smaller communities have been well received in municipalities as far away as Washington State. In the handout there's a aerial and a couple of shots of one that was built in Kirkland, Washington, which also is very well received and been very successful. So we find that this is really an appropriate development. I just want to take you a little bit through the plans themselves. The rendering might be easier for you to follow, but again, where the existing driveway is for one of the existing houses, we've widened that out. We've added 2 garage structures with driveway spaces in front. We have the cottages. There's 2 cottage styles, one slightly larger than the other, but they're both in the 1,200 square foot range. They're both 2-bedroom designs. We'll go over the architecture of that a little bit later, but they're centered around a little courtyard community. And the reason we're able to do this is by putting the parking out in one consolidated area. We don't have driveways traversing all through the site. Driveways take up the green area, driveways create runoff, and driveways are for some, but not everybody wants to have a driveway right up to their house. It becomes a very quiet community, and you can see that in the Kirkland, Washington project there. It's been very, very expensive. That is not built under the affordable housing law. That is an infill zone that they've developed there. And those houses sell for approximately $500,000 apiece with some very fine detailing. One of the key considerations for this site is the soil and erosion control plan on sheet SP4. And what we have is some temporary detention sediment basins that we're running water into to filter out anything. We will have a large infiltrator field in the courtyard in the center. And Mr. Weiwei, in a few minutes, will discuss the drainage aspects of the site and how we are controlling any possible sedimentation on the site. And we're also going to be controlling drainage runoff. You've received various letters and reports from fire, police, traffic, tree commission, inland wetlands, planner. We submitted a CAM application. We did get the traffic commission's approval. The traffic commission originally was under the impression that this was going to be serviced by the City of Milford Sanitation Department, and the big garbage trucks would be backing out onto the property. But once they saw that this was a private sanitation with a smaller size pack rat style garbage truck, they were able to sign off without any objection. The development to comply with the fire department's interest, all the new units will have residential sprinkler systems, fire suppression systems as well. The CAM application, I will be very, very brief because most everything is covered in the general application as well, but just we are on the other side of Seaside Avenue, away from any tidal resources. This is in the shoreline area. It's outside any sensitive coastal area. It's not waterfront. No coastal resources are immediately adjacent to the property. Therefore, there are no adverse impacts on any coastal resources and systems. The application is consistent with all coastal policies. It requires no new infrastructure to support development since a paved road with all needed utilities already exists. It provides sound economic growth without disruption of any valuable coastal resources. So at this point, I'd like to ask you to give your attention to Robert Weiwei of our office as he'll discuss the civil engineering aspects.
Good evening. My name is Robert Weiwei. I'm a licensed professional engineer with the firm of Codespodian Associates. What I'd like to do tonight is just briefly walk you through the site engineering and civil engineering aspects of the project. The site will basically be served by all major utilities, which include sanitary sewers, public water supply, electric, CATV, and natural gas. Basically, with the sanitary sewer, we'll be doing a connection from the existing sanitary sewer line on Seaside Avenue located at the approximate intersection of Amber Lane, and then extending that down in a southerly direction to line up with the driveway access and then run the main line in through the property. Each of the proposed units will have a separate sanitary sewer lateral, making the connection to the main line. With regards to the storm drainage, the majority of the site lies within the south central shoreline watershed, with a very small portion of the site up in the northeast corner here being tributary to the Weppawag River watershed. The topography is generally flat and collects the surface runoff from both our site as well as the adjacent properties to the north and west through a swale that runs down through the center of the property and ultimately discharges into the rear yard of 17 Meadowside Road, where there's an existing depression and several dry wells located on that particular piece of property. Now, as part of our analysis and the design of the stormwater management plan, we looked at a number of factors, one of them being the total watershed area that's involved with not only our project but also the off-site areas. And basically, when we take a look at the entire tributary area to this depression back on 17 Meadowside, there's approximately 2.8 acres that all drains down to the depression in here. A good portion of our site, as well as the properties out to the west and north, also flow down to that particular area. Now, our site will increase the impervious surface area of the total watershed by approximately 50%. That's primarily due to the increased impervious areas consisting of the roof areas, the parking areas, and sidewalks attributable to the project. And normally, when we have that type of development, increases in stormwater runoff could be expected if there were no stormwater management system provided as part of the design. As part of our plan, we do have an extremely detailed stormwater management plan that's being proposed. The City of Milford Engineering Department guidelines basically require mitigation for a 25-year storm event. Now, in your January 4th, 2016 letter from the City of Milford city engineer, he basically provides his review and indicates that the plans do comply with that requirement of the engineering department. In addition to that, we've not only met the requirements or the obligations, but we've also provided for mitigation for up to a 100-year storm event for the proposed development. And we've actually gone way over on the design of this in light of the low depression area back on 17 Meadowside. By way of reference, for the 25-year storm event, we will be reducing peak flow rates by approximately 11%, as well as approximately a 20% reduction in runoff volume that would be tributary down to the 17 Meadowside Road property. In contrast, for the 100-year event, we're providing approximately a 12.5% reduction in the peak rate of runoff, as well as a 21% reduction in the volume of runoff that will be leaving the site. This is basically accomplished through the installation of 48 Coltech 920 gallery units, which will be located in the central corridor. On your sheet SP3, you can see they're basically located right in this central area here. And basically all the runoff from the proposed roofs, as well as the parking areas and sidewalks, and a majority of the yard area that's graded off will be tributary to a water quality control structure up in this area, and ultimately discharging into the galleries, where the galleries will provide for the storage of stormwater runoff, as well as providing or allowing for the infiltration of the stormwater runoff into the underlying soils. The details for the galleries can be found on sheet SP8 of your package. your sheet, SP8 basically provides for a blow-up of that area and provides for more detailing of that section there. Now, prior to entering the galleries, all the stormwater that's getting collected from both the roofs, the driveways, and the sidewalks, as well as some of the lawn area, will be going down into the water quality control structure, which will be located at the west end of the proposed parking lot, where that will provide for the sedimentation as well as isolating floatables, oils, and greases, and basically containing them to that structure before allowing the rest of the stormwater to be discharged to the gallery. So in essence, the goal is to discharge as clean a water product as you can to the galleries, which will provide for the infiltration into the area. The water quality structure has been sized in accordance with the 2004 deep water quality manual. In addition to that, we've also provided 2 additional features to the stormwater management plan by way of 2 infiltration galleries and a level spreader. If you go back to your sheet SP3 up at the northern end of the site, where we'll be intercepting the flow coming in from the northerly properties, that will be intercepted through the swale and discharged into the infiltration system, and that is, or the infiltration trench, and that's highlighted on sheet SP8 up in this section here with the cross-section detail. Likewise, we've also incorporated a level spreader at the extreme southern end of our property just before discharging off-site to 17 Meadowside Road. And the primary purpose of the level spreader is to collect the water that's being picked up from the off-site areas and being diverted around the west portion of the property and basically discharging it down into this section here and allowing it to flow through a relatively flat swale and through here. And that also allows for infiltration. That's functioned by a stone-lined trench approximately 3 feet deep and through that area to facilitate additional infiltration before any discharge takes place. Now, both of these elements, both the level spreader to the south and the infiltration trench up to the north, will provide additional storage and infiltration. However, no credit for either of these 2 features were taken for in our calculations. So what that ends up doing is basically resulting in an overly conservative design with regards to the stormwater management. With that pretty much wraps up what the stormwater management system is about. And it's basically our professional opinion that, provided the system is properly installed and maintained, that there will not be any negative impact from this proposed project as a result of the stormwater management plan. With that, I'd like to bring up David Spear from DLS, and he'll go over and review the traffic elements of the project.
For the record, my name is David Spear. I'm the principal engineer with DLS Traffic Engineering. My office is in Windsor, Connecticut, and I'm a professional engineer. We were asked to look at this application from a traffic engineering point of view, and I'd just like to go through the highlights of the traffic study that we prepared for this application. The scope of study included review of Connecticut DOT count data and accident data. We also collected accident data from the town, police department. We collected turning movement counts. We did the volume development. We did the trip generation estimate. We projected traffic to the design year, including some background traffic growth and an additional development. And we also did capacity analysis calculations at study intersections. The 4 study intersections we included were Seaside Avenue at Milford Hospital, Seaside Court, Seaside Avenue at Cricklewood Road, Seaside Avenue at Amber Lane and the Site Drive, and Seaside Avenue at Meadow Road. Seaside Avenue is a local road with a 25-mile-per-hour speed limit. Along our site frontage, it's about 22 feet wide, providing 1 travel lane in each direction. Seaside Avenue had volumes that we recorded during our turning movement program might keep slipping here, which was done in August of 2015. We counted at the south end by Meadowside Road 199 trips in the morning and 293 in the afternoon. At the north of Seaside Court, the volumes were 395 vehicles in the morning and 627 in the afternoon. So there was a significant difference once you get north of the site. The accident history was collected from 2012 to 2014. The DOT data showed 3 accidents, and the additional accidents recorded by the town were 7 accidents. These accidents were random, and they were generally caused by driver error. There were no trends that were correctable that we could find in the accident data. We looked at the intersection site distance from the proposed primary site drive. We found 320 feet looking to the left and 360 feet looking to the right, with which is adequate for 29 miles per hour looking left and 32 miles per hour looking right. The speed limit is 25 miles per hour, and the site distance needed for the posted speed limit is 280 feet. So we have more than adequate site distance for the posted speed limit. The proposed conditions included estimate of the background traffic. We grew the traffic by 1.5% per year from 2015 to 2017. We added in traffic from 335 Meadowside Road, which included 15 townhouses. And then we estimated the trip generation for the 9 detached residential units at 16 trips in the morning and 12 trips in the afternoon. That was based on Institute of Transportation Engineers trip generation data, and it's actually a conservative estimate of site traffic. The average trip generation for single-family houses is about 1 trip per unit during the peak hours, and we have well above that in our estimate, and it's mainly due to the small number of units, which resulted in a higher estimate using the equations in the ITE trip generation manual. We applied the traffic to the roadway system using existing travel patterns, and then we added the distributed site traffic to the background numbers to get our combined volumes for analysis. We then did capacity analysis of the 4 study intersections before and after we added the site traffic, and we had level of service B operation for both cases before and after the site traffic during both peak hours at all study intersections. So in conclusion, there's really 4 primary conclusions we have here. There's no accident trends that would indicate any problem with existing geometry at the site. The intersection site distance is good. Levels of service are B or better at all study intersections. The addition of site traffic did not impact the level of service. And there's no significant impact on safety or traffic operations from the traffic from this proposed development. So those are the key points of our traffic study. I'd like to reintroduce Jeff Gordon back to talk about the buildings.
Leave it to an attorney to do an engineer's job. Okay, I'm going to turn your attention to sheet SP5L, just to talk a little bit about the lighting, site lighting. As I mentioned before, having the driveways and the parking separated from the units, not having driveways throughout the project, we're able to really reduce the amount of site lighting. And what you have is a developed plan of the photometrics to the left on sheet SP5L, and then we also have a facsimile where they put in a 3D model of the units, they put in the light fixtures and the locations, and we can be assured that way of not having any light spillage off the property line. And that's something that we found has been very beneficial, and I think that it shows the sensitivity of the design. Again, we're using LED fixtures, something that is more environmentally sensitive at this time. Just bring your attention to sheet A1. This is, again, a basic cottage-style house, very, very simple, up and down unit, vinyl siding, cedar impression type shingles up on the gable ends. And sheet A2 shows the ground floor, 888 square feet, 2 bedrooms, and a loft area. 300 square foot loft and an open concept living area, dining island, and really a very, very simple, basic home. The cottage is shown on A3, or a little bit larger, only by maybe about 100 square feet or so, but it does have a screened-in front porch, and it has, you'll see on the floor plan, a little bit of a dining nook. So on sheet A4, you'll see that there are 2 different ground floor plans that show the master bedroom on the ground floor. One, I believe, is set up to be set up as a handicap unit, would have a wider hallways. But we see the little dining area, dining nook there. We have the screened-in porch, and then the second bedroom is up on the second floor. I don't think you have this unit here, but this is the garage buildings, and this little elevation over here is the only extra thing that would be added along the streetscape. You're driving by, you're not going to see anything really different on that property, except that we're going to be adding that little garage unit end elevation, as you can see down here on the rendering. So again, we have parking. We have 10 garage spaces. We have 12 surface spaces. So we have 22 parking spaces for 9 homes. As an 8-30G application, it doesn't have to meet the letter of regulations, but certainly we did everything we could to meet the spirit of a single-family neighborhood that this is in. It's in the right location. It is a modest scale. It's probably going to be the smallest scale, one of these type of applications you're ever going to see come before you. But again, from other ones that I've worked on, when you put some of these smaller ones throughout a town, it helps you to achieve your obligation goals, getting towards your 10%, but it does so in a way that doesn't put 200 units on one section of the community. So at this time, I ask you to give your attention to Attorney Cody. He's going to spend some few moments with you on the affordability plan.
I've been advised by Representative Schlossberg. Yes, I've been advised by Representative Schlossberg that they have difficulty hearing in the back. I'm going to speak up, and obviously I can't control your PA system, but the folks in the back are having difficulty hearing. Can you hear me? Okay. Well, in conclusion, I will note that we've also filed, as required by the statute, an affordability plan. And just for the record, the sample calculation for the two-bedroom rental unit leased to a 60% household based on the 2015 data would be roughly $1,031 per month. And the anticipated rent based upon 80% of adjusted median income for the four-bedroom unit would be $1,604 per month. And the units, of course, will be deed restricted, and we have submitted for the record copies of the sample deed restrictions which would be used. I would also note, interestingly, in David Spear's presentation, his review was based upon these being single-family residences, which one would anticipate to be 3- and 4-bedroom homes. Because the units are detached, he treated them as single-family. If they were attached, like townhouses, the trip generation calculations would have been 30% less. So by virtue of the fact that they don't have party walls, they use the one-family calculations, which are inherently 30% higher, even though these are two-bedroom, 1.5-story structures. That was just as a result of them being detached. And at this point, I would conclude the presentation and open the floor to any questions the board may have.
Thank you, Attorney Cody. Mr. Sulkus, are there any comments from your office?
Not at this time.
Thank you. Are there questions from the board at this time for the applicants? Mr. Nichol.
Yeah, I'm interested in what type of fire suppression you're presenting for these cottages.
The applicant volunteered to sprinkle all the units, so they'll have full sprinklers.
And I also noticed that you have a snow shelf right next to a handicap parking place.
Technically, the project does not require handicap parking spaces as being single-detached community, so I'm not sure which space you were talking about, but we voluntarily put in, again, a handicap parking spot, but the snow shelves are basically just to depict for the commission that there is plenty of area and capacity around the site to deposit snow. We seem to be more aware of snow distribution in the last couple of years than we had worried about in the past, so we just try to show you that there's ample area on the site to deposit snow.
So what you're saying is the handicap space can be moved based on the fact that you said you did have a handicap cottage?
Right. It could be relocated, but we designated one. If we wanted to move it, we're willing to do that, but again, it's voluntary.
You also mentioned you're going to have a small garbage truck come in there,
Yes.
and why is that?
Well, it's a private community. I can actually submit the picture of the type of garbage truck. It's a private carting truck. If you want, I can show you what it is.
But I believe what I saw in your presentation there, that you have a area that's designated for emergency vehicles.
We had designated a mountable apron going into the garden area, and the infiltrators will be designed as an H20 loaded. We wanted to make a provision if the fire department wanted to come in there. They basically informed me, they had no interest in coming in there, but we designed it in such a way that a vehicle could go in there and that apron would be a mountable apron.
That apron, that H20 apron,
H20 loading is for the
I
infiltrators.
understand that. That's basically just says that you have an 88,000-pound axle on the front and a 32,000-pound on the back, which is 40,000 pounds. And you're going to tell me that one of our fire trucks doesn't weigh 40,000?
Basically, the design standard that we're always made to keep is H20 loading. It's comparable to what you have on your public streets, but the fire department basically told me that if we put the sprinklers on the building, they don't even want the fire lane. But I'm leaving it there anyway, because it's not just the fire department that comes through.
That's what I'm going at. The EMTs and the emergency vehicles pulling in there are going up on top of your infiltrators at a rate of 40,000 pounds.
They're designed the same as you would have under a road, so that's the industry standard, is H20 loaded. They are, how deep are they, Bob? How deep are they? Yeah, they're at least 4 feet deep, so they're going to have quite a bit of cover. Usually H20 is at 2 foot of cover. This is going to have 4 foot of cover.
I believe your highways are HS20 loading.
This is the standard that we've been using. We've used on parking lots and highways and road design.
More question. You have, you said you had 22 parking places?
Yeah, we have 10 garage spaces. We have 10 surface spaces and 10 driveway spaces and 2 additional surface spaces.
I can't see that.
The garage, I have a garage with 2 spaces located here on the south property line next to the existing house with its driveway spaces. Then I have 2 4-car garages with 4 driveway spaces in front of each of those. And then I have the 2 additional spaces, one of which was designated as the handicap space.
I see. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
Further questions from the board? Mr.
Yes.
Lutz.
Who will own the project and who will manage the project?
Excuse me, sir, who owns the project? Ms. Dabowski.
Who will manage the project? Who will manage it?
Manage the project. Well, right now, the conservators, Derek and Isabel, with the assistance from my office, would be the administrators of the affordability plan. And, you know, they would, of course, you know, hire construction management, et cetera.
Mr. Lutz, does that answer your question as to construction management, or was your question property management? Attorney Cody, did it answer your question? Okay. Is there further question from, comment from the board at this time? Mr. Nichol? Okay. Anyone else from the board? Okay, then at this point, we'd like to open it up for public comment. As indicated before, I'd like to ask that people who are in favor of the application come forward and speak. And again, as we've said, please be succinct, direct, and please give the other members of the public an opportunity to speak. So at this time, I'd ask for anyone in favor of the application to come forward.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Quish.
At a previous meeting, we heard that the public did not get to look at the plans or the handouts. Might it be appropriate to take a 5-minute recess so the community at large could take a closer look at the plans and the handouts that we've just received?
I think that's an excellent idea. We will take a 5-minute recess. All right, I'd like to call the meeting back to order. I think we've solved the problem of the rear speakers that now should be on. Do people sitting in the back, can they hear better than they could before? Okay. As I said, at this point, we're going to open it up to public comment. I had previously asked anyone in favor wanting to speak to come up first. I didn't see anyone, but I'm just going to ask again. Anyone in favor want to come up and speak? Okay. How about those opposed? I see people have begun a line. Please, ma'am, come on up and let us know your name and your address. Please spell your last name. And hello.
Hi, can everyone hear me? Okay, good evening, Planning and Zoning Board, Chairman Sutton, Vice Chair Mead, all members, and Mr. Sulkus. Thank you for your time this evening. My name is Tracy Casey, that's spelled C-A-S-E-Y. I live at 4 Amber Lane. You may have heard the lane mentioned a moment ago. I do want to point out that's a private road. We own it. We have to pay for all our services, including fixing roads. So just make sure you guys know that. And it's directly across the street from the Seaside Avenue proposal. A group of 19 residents in the area of Amber Lane, Meadowside, and Seaside Avenue have formed together to oppose this proposal. And we've prepared comments in outline form with a written set of guidelines that we request you consider when voting on the proposal. So would you mind, Vanna, Exhibit A? Thank you. As you'll see when you receive it, and as you'll hear from members of our town group, the outline raises public health and safety issues that we feel have sufficient weight to allow you to deny this application. It includes several court case citations and copies of those cases for your convenience that provide precedents for denying proposal based on clear public safety concerns. Additionally, this neighborhood group has retained the services of a traffic expert, Mr. Kermit Wah. We understand that the Police Commission gave approval with the condition of an independent traffic analysis, which is still to be completed as far as we understand. We respectfully request that this public hearing be kept open at least until March 15th to give us the opportunity for Mr. Wah to also provide his expert report as to the impact of this project on public safety. It should also be noted that Seaside Avenue is a state highway, and the file reflects no request for a curb cutout or traffic input from the State Department of Transportation, which we believe is very important in the board's consideration of traffic and public safety. Please know that we are deeply caring citizens of the Milford community and do not oppose affordable housing in general. However, we are residents of the very specific area at issue and know firsthand the traffic and safety concerns of this area. I can tell you I'm very surprised to hear that there were only the handful of accidents because I hear them from my window at night, and we get up often in the middle of the night due to accidents. So I'm not sure about that. But most of us have personally witnessed accidents, police activity. You're going to hear about police cars pulling into driveways, people trying to hide. It's a very curvy road. People do not drive 25 on this road. I have 4 children. I wouldn't allow them. Now they're older, they do what they want, but I would not allow them to touch that street. And I'm at the corner of Amber Lane and Seaside. That street, people are not driving 25. We see every day the speed and the volume of the traffic. We respectfully request that you deny this proposal. You will now hear from members of our neighborhood group providing specific aspects of the health and safety issues as provided in the outline. We thank you in advance for your consideration and do ask that you let us know that we do have, that it is being continued so that we can provide our safety experts report. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you to the members of the board for hearing our concerns this evening. My name is Tara Rizzo. I live at 208 Seaside Avenue, which is on the northwest corner of the intersection of Seaside and Meadowside. It is directly adjacent to number 214, which is under consideration. And I'd ask you to please draw your attention to item A under the traffic concerns section of our proposal. The intersection with Seaside and Meadowside I will be addressing. Thanks. When we purchased our home in 2006, there was a gravel driveway that entered on Meadowside Avenue and ran across our property to the garage at the back of our house. Within a couple of years, we hired a driveway contractor to remove that gravel path and install a proper asphalt driveway. We intended for the new driveway to enter our property from Seaside Ave and run alongside our house. The contractor informed us that we would need approval from the state of Connecticut to add a driveway along Seaside since it is a state road. A DOT inspector came to my house to inspect the site and made a determination that even with a turnaround, ensuring that we would not ever be backing out onto Seaside, it was unsafe to install the driveway. He said sight lines to the north were not adequate and was concerned about the volume and speed of traffic coming down Seaside Avenue during his brief 10-minute visit to my house. At the time of the denial, we were rather annoyed. We live at a Seaside address, but were denied a Seaside driveway. Disappointed, we went ahead and paved a portion of the original Meadowside driveway, but over time, this denial proved fortuitous. Few residents of our street can forget the night of a high-speed police chase through our neighborhood. Knowing that they were headed in our direction, an officer parked their cruiser perpendicular to the street between 208 and 214 Seaside in an attempt to block the approaching speeding car that was being chased by police from several towns. The driver tried to go around the cruiser but clipped it, drove through my front yard, took out the perimeter bushes, drove across the driveway of 214 Seaside, took out the retaining wall, spun through the front yards of 214 and 224 before finally making it back onto Seaside and speeding away. I think they made it to West Haven. Thankfully, the officer was unharmed, and the driver miraculously missed the telephone pole at the corner of my property. But our properties sustained significant damage, and had our driveway been moved as we had requested, our cars would have been directly in his path. In the time I have lived at Seaside, I have lost track of how many accidents have occurred between Meadowside Ave and Amber Lane. I have placed countless 911 calls and run from my house to check the condition of drivers and passengers at all hours of the day and night. Has a permit application for the driveway for this project been submitted to the Connecticut DOT? The state of Connecticut determined that Seaside Ave was too busy for a driveway with a turnaround for my 2-driver family. Then it is too busy for this project with 9 single-family homes and countless parking spaces with unknown countless drivers. Therefore, this proposal must be denied. Thank you.
No, you can do it. I just want to say my name is Michael Perkins. This is my wife, Tina Perkins, and we're just here from 198 Seaside Avenue. And we just first want to say thank you for the beautiful presentation. It was very detailed and it informed a lot of us in the community. And we all appreciate what you're doing for people who need a second chance. And we've just moved in a year and a half ago, so we can only speak to our personal experience of traffic in our neighborhood.
I just want to say that when we first moved in, we moved from Boston, and we actually moved from a very, very busy road in the middle of Boston. And when we had moved into this neighborhood, we were under the assumption that it was going to be a quiet neighborhood, a place to raise a child where they could run in the yard, and then, God forbid they ran in the street, it wouldn't be a big deal. We had only visited the house once, and we made a down payment because we were moving from Boston. My husband's a physician at Yale, so we had to make a split decision in a couple hours. When we came back, we realized it's an extremely, extremely busy road. There's often times when it takes me 10 minutes to get out of my own driveway. We live directly at the intersection of Meadowside and Seaside. Sometimes there's 10 cars lined up way past my driveway, and I just sit there. Sometimes I try to back up, and I have a baby in the back, so I'm trying to watch the baby and back up. I see people try to cut me off, coming speeding down Seaside and then go down Meadowside and take that corner, so I can't back up. So I don't know what your traffic report says, but I just know living there, it's a very, very busy road. And I did bring some pictures. I just clicked them quickly yesterday.
It's just a representation of the wear down of the curb from the volume of traffic and people running up on the curb. It's completely disintegrated.
It's just completely crumbled.
Yeah, and the last is the police.
Yeah, and so the short time that we've lived here in a year and a half, there's been multiple police stops in front of our home or across the street at this intersection, one of which was somebody who was speeding down Seaside and decided to pull into our driveway and turn off the lights and try to not get a ticket. The police found them. But there's been a lot of police activity, a lot of car volume. I can't imagine adding more residents, especially this many homes with, 2 or 3 people in each home to our already busy neighborhood. I just think it's unsafe.
Thank you.
Thank you
for
so
the
much.
opportunity. Thank you for your time and service.
Good evening. Hi, my name is Walter Ortoliva from 244 Seaside Ave, and I live about 200 feet from the proposed development. When I first moved in to Seaside Ave, I used to run outside at night with my camera and take pictures of all the accidents that were on Seaside Ave. As the years went on, I became so routine, I didn't even bother. There are accidents almost always happen at night. And when you put a hill, a curve together, and an intersection, you're going to have problems. The location of the proposed housing at 224 Seaside Ave is one of those locations. All the neighbors have a story of an accident. Cars running off the road, crossing the center line, going across the sidewalk, going across lawns, taking out bushes. Thump, you hear at night. In the morning you go out and you find a skid mark or something busted. Sometimes even your garbage can is destroyed, at which point I switch to the Rubbermaid. They don't break as easy. Unfortunately, everybody isn't so lucky, and I'd like to submit a couple photos of accidents that I shot a number of years ago. One is of a double fatality. This occurred on Seaside Ave, 100 feet from the proposed development. 2 young men died in this car at the intersection, 100 feet away from where they want to put this development. The second accident is of a driver that was heading north on Seaside Ave. He failed to negotiate the curve at the top of East Seaside Ave where Meadowside is. He went across the road, took down a telephone pole, and landed right at the edge of 214 Seaside Ave, which is the location that proposed from Eugene Dombrowski. So there is a trend of accidents in this location. Tara spoke of one just a couple of minutes ago. I didn't even know of that one. A couple of years ago, I heard of a car took out a fence. So it's a bad combination, that intersection, the curve, the hill, and Meadowside Road. In conclusion, the board should consider the real dangers of Seaside Ave at night at this location. I don't suppose the traffic study was done at night, but that's when all the trouble happens. You cannot see the road curve as you come north on Seaside Avenue. And, it happens to me myself. I live in the neighborhood, and I can see how someone easily could make that mistake. And when you do make that mistake, you're going to end up right where they're proposing this housing development. And I feel sorry for anybody that's going to move in there. So the people moving in these homes should know the dirty little secret that everyone on the street knows, that the proposed driveway entering Seaside Ave is unsafe and a potential landing zone for upside-down cars. I have some photos that reinforce the ones right here. How would I present those to you?
If you want to submit them as part of the record, you can give them to the board. They'll be made part of the record.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening.
Hi. My name is Shally Leslie, Leslie. I live at 234 Seaside Avenue. I've lived at this location for over 14 years, and my property abuts the side of 224 Seaside Ave, and I'm with the Seaside Neighborhood Group that submitted the outline tonight. This proposal presents a significant public safety issue to a neighborhood that is already at risk due to poor sightlines. This application is adding not only 7 additional homes to a mere 1.2 acres for a total of 9 homes, it also creates, in essence, what acts like another intersection at a location on Seaside where 2 intersections already exist, Amber Lane and Meadowside Road, and where sightlines in both directions are already deficient. Vehicles for 8 of the 9 homes will be entering and exiting the one property at 224 Seaside Avenue and will be affected by and contributing to the poor sightline conditions. Sightlines are already inadequate for the through traffic and for the homeowners entering and exiting properties in the area of the proposed project. North of the property, there are 3 significant curves in the road, and south of the site, there is a 45-degree bend in the road at the Meadowside intersection, which causes a dangerous short sightline issue. Sightlines in all directions, along with the many curves and the bend in the road, are further reduced, with vehicles turning at 2 existing intersections at Amber Lane and Meadowside Road. In a recent accident in January 2012, I woke to a loud noise and looked out my window to see a car on my neighbor's front lawn at the proposed location, 224 Seaside Ave. The next day, I could see tire tracks where the lawn was torn up and most of the fence along the front of the property was down. In the police report, the driver had been traveling southbound and stated that he misjudged the curve in the road and lost control of his car. I have a copy of the police report if you'd like it. As an attempt to exit my own driveway next door to the proposed site, it is difficult to see in either direction due to the restricted sight lines. Looking to the right, south on Seaside Ave, vehicles heading north on Seaside are out of my sight until they round the corner and are suddenly visible at the Meadowside Road intersection. Looking to the left, north, my sight lines are very limited due to all of the curves in the road, which run from my property and continue on toward the hospital. There are also pedestrians to consider, other driveways, and the dense traffic that exceeds the speed limit. Seaside Avenue in the area of the proposed site is a very narrow road with no breakdown lanes. This stretch of Seaside Avenue is heavily traveled as it is a traffic cut-through for the Meadowside Road area and for the offshoot neighborhoods and beaches at the end of the street. And because of its close proximity to Milford Hospital, this segment of Seaside is a cut-through daily for ambulances, fire rescue, and police vehicles. Considering deficient sight lines exacerbated by intersections, vehicle speeds, and substantial traffic, I urge planning and zoning to please carefully weigh the risks of potential harm to the community presented by this proposal. And I have one more comment, which I really feel uncomfortable to bring up, but since it was mentioned during the presentation, Eugenia had a paying tenant at 224 Seaside for close to 13 years, who she adored, who was abruptly evicted within months of her stroke. 1.5 years worth of rent has been forfeited since the eviction, and in fact, both houses have been empty since that time. Thank you very much.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dave Segan. I live at 18 Meadowside Road, across from the proposed development. As a lifelong resident of this neighborhood, I find myself here tonight to express opposition to this ill-conceived development that, if allowed to proceed, will further erode the character and safety of our little community. Having grown up near this intersection of Seaside Ave and Meadowside Road, I've witnessed over the years the gradual change of the area and Milford in general. Those Seaside and Meadowside have traditionally served the neighborhoods located in the southwestern side of town here. As of late, they have become busy arteries in their own right. These roads carry heavy traffic from the growing nightlife opportunities in the center of town, along with supporting access to Silver Stand State Park, and in general, serve as thoroughfares for out-of-towners and others looking to bypass traffic and police scrutiny on the main roads. Over the years, this intersection and the surrounding area has been the location of several fatalities, many serious crashes, and numerous fender benders, of which others here tonight will also attest to. There have also been uncountable additional incidents not officially recorded or reported because they produced little or no damage and or the perpetrators left the scene before law enforcement could respond. Though a traffic study included in this proposal lists the average speed of the vehicles at 27 miles per hour during their sampling time, anyone who lives in this area knows that at most times it can be a challenge to find a safe interval to back out of one's driveway without risking a crash due to the speed of traffic, which is more realistically between 40 and 50 miles per hour. Adding an additional road or driveway and the many dozens of vehicle trips it will produce to this already unsafe area will further exacerbate this problem. Additionally, this area is zoned for single-family houses, and that is the makeup of this neighborhood. This proposal seeks to put 9 dwellings on a parcel of land that was just about big enough for some kids to throw around a football. I know because I was one of them, and it was our neighbor's backyard. As a final note, hopefully some of our elected representatives are here tonight or are listening, because overall this issue really needs to be addressed at the state level. Regardless of one's political opinion on the merits of affordable housing in general, this 830G statute and its ill-conceived provisions basically allow landowners and developers to systematically nullify local zoning laws for profit in the guise of providing a scant few affordable housing opportunities. Zoning laws, along with planning and zoning boards, exist to realistically ensure that as a citizen and homeowner in a community, the neighborhood you live in will reasonably retain its character. This means that one day, a bulldozer won't come and tear down the Cape Cod next door and start building a garbage dump, a tire factory, or a housing development 10 feet from your window. Unfortunately, this travesty that is 830G effectively invalidates all the protections that have historically been put in place to prevent the erosion of property values and quality of life in our communities. Something needs to be done to correct this. Thank you for your time.
Good evening. My name is Susan Glennon. I live at 99 Carlson Drive. So I'm not an official part of this little group, but I've lived in this area for 30 years, and I know many of these speakers personally. I often walk along Seaside Avenue at different times of the day, and I can attest to the fact that it is a very busy road. So I had to laugh when I saw this little schematic drawing in the paper, which has been part of the presentation, because I've stood in front of these two homes, in between these two homes, and I've said, I'm very skeptical that this parking area, the parking lot, the garages, the carports, whatever they're calling them, will actually fit in between those two homes. I'm skeptical that the 7 little cottages will fit in the area behind those two homes. And even if they will, it's not going to look like this nice, tidy little package that is in this drawing. This is really, in my opinion, a travesty. I had a conversation with one of you several months back about the apparent willingness of the Planning and Zoning Board to fight some 830G proposals in certain parts of town and yet approve proposals on the other side of town with little question, and this really troubles me. Unless a proposal truly fits in the area where it's being suggested, it's my opinion that you should be either denying all of them or approving all of them, one way or the other. I want to see you standing up for the community of Milford to do what's right for our quality of life, because it's the people that live all around this proposal whose quality of life is going to be severely affected by this. So please, I want you to give this a good long look, really think carefully about it, use all the tools that you have at your disposal before you turn around and approve or deny this plan. But really, we need to stand up as a community and say that we've had enough of this. Thank you.
My name is Edward Rawls. I live at 231 Seaside Avenue. We have lived there for 11 years. I want to say that I am a pastor. I'm the pastor of First Congregational Church in Stratford. And I say that because I want to tell you that I work with the homeless and the vulnerable and the poor each and every day. And a lot of these people I would be honored to call my neighbors. I am not here as one that, God knows, I know we need affordable housing in every community in Connecticut. And I'm not standing here to say, not in my backyard. I just think this is a very poor plan that doesn't take into account the safety. And by safety, I mean the traffic safety of our community. We live on we live on Seaside Avenue, but we come in on Amber Lane. This road is going to be next to us, and more cars will be in that, coming off of that, what they call a driveway, than there will be on all of the road of Amber Lane, which has 5 houses on it. You're asking to put on this one little lane 7 houses. Besides the 2 houses, there's Amber Lane, there'll be this driveway, as they call it, and then there'll be a meadowside. This is very dangerous. It's not well-planned. In fact, it seems a lot more to me as something that's not trying to help the poor in our community, but it's for profit of those who are trying to pass it through. Thank you.
Good evening, Board. I'm Sandra Rawls, and I live at 231 Seaside Avenue with my husband, Edward. And just yesterday, we were trying to make a left out of Amber Lane to go toward the beach, which we would have been going south. I was the passenger, and I was saying to Ed, it's clear to the right. As soon as Ed started to take his left, a car was there, and I screamed, stop. This is an everyday occurrence. To make a left or a right off of Amber Lane is next to impossible. My bigger concern is that you're going to have a driveway across the street from Amber Lane. What happens when the people on the seaside at the new proposed site is wanting to make a left to go north, and I'm wanting to make a left to go south? Doesn't seem like there's been a lot of consideration with the fact that both parties are trying to dodge the traffic coming from the right and the left. So I don't think it's safe, and I would really appreciate you really supporting our neighborhood, because we see far too many accidents as it is in the 11 years that we've lived there. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Patricia Deere. I live at 235 Seaside Ave. I live diagonally across from the proposed site. My husband and I have lived there for 17 years. My concerns are with the development at 214, 224 Seaside Ave are mainly with the fact that the sight lines are inadequate for traffic. The posted speed limit is 25. However, the majority of vehicles travel much faster, as many people tonight have already said. At no point in time during any traffic study has the Milford Police Department placed their radar speed sign on Seaside Ave. So where does the average of 28 to 29 miles an hour per hour come from, as referred to in the traffic study? Was this not possible because Seaside Ave is State Road 737? It takes me some days 2 to 5 minutes just to get out of my driveway. Then that's no lie, as other people have already said as well. Some days when I'm pulling out of my driveway,
I'll pull out, and all of a sudden there's a car right there. Where did they come from? They were obviously speeding down the road. Now add another 22 plus vehicles within that same 500 feet, trying to enter and exit at the same times of day as everybody else coming home from work, going to work, add the summer traffic of the beach. That's going to be complete chaos. I'm sorry, I lost my spot here. It's going to be absolute complete chaos with the traffic trying to get on that whole area of Seaside Ave. Not to mention the previous owners that were just in front of me, the house next door to me, the previous owners of that house moved their driveway off of Seaside Ave onto Amber Lane when that development was put forth there because Seaside Ave was too dangerous for their driveway. My children were never allowed to be in our front yard unsupervised because of the traffic. We ended up having to put a fence up so that when they were younger, they wouldn't wander out into the street because that could have been deadly. Another issue is the undocumented accidents and incidents that do occur. We have had our lawn driven up on and ruined from vehicles going off the road. I've witnessed several bicyclists being hit by cars where no police were called, as well as fender benders, which do include people exiting their driveways, which were hit by oncoming traffic, which again, most of the time no police were called because they were minor fender benders. Where are all the construction vehicles going to park when this takes place? Amber Lane is a private road, and there is no parking on Seaside Ave. I would also like to say that 9 houses plus garages on a 1.19 acre of land in an area that has 2 to 3 houses average per every acre, in the community's eyes, is absurd, claustrophobic, and extremely out of character for this neighborhood. I strongly urge you to vote against this project. Thank you for your time.
Hi, my name is Beth Royer. I live at 52 Meadowside Road. As a teenager, I lived near the former Simon Lake School and regularly sped down Meadowside Road and took a left on Seaside in order to get downtown because there were fewer traffic lights. As a grown-up, I bought a house on Meadowside Road and regularly experience what I would describe as unkind driving. Pulling out of my road, driving up Meadowside, or going down to Seaside. For a number of years, I was strictly taking the train to work, so I would walk from my home down Seaside to the train station downtown, and again, people drive crazy. Nothing is being done. This is not going to make the situation better. It's definitely going to make the situation worse, which is why I'm opposed to it. Thank you for your time.
Hello. My name's Don Robertson. I live at 236 Seaside Avenue. My house is halfway between Meadowside and Cricklewood. I'm on the straightest part of those 2 curves, so I have probably the best chance to get out of my driveway of anybody in my neighborhood. It is a state road. It's got double yellow lines. A lot of people treat it as a state highway. When I pull my car out, I look both ways and I don't see anybody. I pull out. By the time I get my car and drive, I've been passed. And that's happened on several occasions. But mostly they just come up behind me very quickly. And it's very dangerous. Like I said, I have probably the best space of straight way between those 2 curves. I live 2 doors down from this proposed site, and 2 doors down is just many degrees more dangerous than my trip. And now if you take, and then you have 22 spaces in that proposed site, that site alone, those 22 spaces are equal to the amount of spaces of the Seaside Avenue addresses between those 2 roads itself. So it's doubling the amount of cars in and out of that area. Thank you for listening.
Good evening. My name is Fatima. Last name is Lugo, L-U-G-O. I live at 11 Amber Lane. I've been there for 11 years. I live with my parents. We moved here from outside the country. So needless to say, coming here was very exciting. And Amber Lane is absolutely beautiful. It's private, and we like just the way it is. However, Seaside, on the other hand, it's a very busy road. I myself have a grown-up child. I have a niece who's 11, used to come every day, and walking anywhere was just very difficult, only because traffic would just come and go, and try to get anywhere is kind of complicated. But my biggest concern truly is the parking. I mean, we have very limited space. All these units are just going to bring more people, and it's not so much bringing the people in, because I'm all for affordable housing, but it's where are we going to put all these guests? It's not just the people living there. Where are we going to put all these guests in terms of their parking? For the most part, Seaside doesn't have any parking. It's not like we have public access anywhere close unless they're going to park on the green, which will not be happening. They can't park at the hospital, so there'll be parking adjacently and on Seaside and all the surrounding areas. Amber Lane, like it's already been stated, is a private road. We get no shoveling or anything. We pay for our own. We paved our road from past projects where machinery have come in and have damaged the road. And like Patty stated, once all this machinery comes, where are they going to go? It's going to be quite a block. It's very concerning. And just one more thing. Seaside is an evacuation route. And as an evacuation route, it's kind of dangerous to have so much going on there. It's already a cause for many, many accidents. So I don't want to take any more of your time, but thank you so much for hearing us.
Hi, my name is Kathy Bonetti, Bonetti. I live at 157 Seaside Avenue. Hear ye, good citizens. The city of Milford is for sale, and there's not a damn thing we can do about it. For almost 20 years, I've attended many, many public meetings here in Milford, and no matter what the issue is, the answer is always the same. There's nothing we can do about it. Our hands are tied. It's a Hartford issue. Yet here we are, once again, a group of hardworking citizens gathered together in this esteemed chamber, voicing our concerns, as is our right. Tonight, I wish to point out a few thoughts connected to the project on Seaside Avenue. As is required during the proposal phase, the traffic study was conducted in August, and in their report, they stated the posted speed limit is 25 miles per hour. That's true. The report states that sight distance from the actual proposed driveway is 320 feet looking left and 360 feet looking right. Basically, a football field either way. Now, for anyone who drives on Seaside Ave like me every day, multiple times, I will tell you that simply is not so. Seaside Avenue has several noticeable curves, particularly beginning with the entrance section near the Milford Green through to the intersection of Meadowside Road. The driveway to enter the proposed development is located where one of these curves crests. Drivers entering Seaside Avenue from Milford Green and continuing toward the beach will never have a chance to see an exiting car from that driveway until it's too late. Never. Another part of the traffic study that I found laughable is connected to travel speeds, which is clearly connected to the curve and the sightline issue. In the DLS report, engineers stated that they observed travel speeds of 28 to 29 miles per hour. And at those speeds, there should be no problem. Are you kidding me? We don't call it Seaside Speedway for nothing. I challenge you to conduct an unobtrusive speed study, not those large neon lighted things that tell you how fast you're going, but something less visible, and then take a look at what's really happening on the road. Lastly, I'd like to address the issue of the bedroom density that is proposed for this project. In our residential neighborhood, this project calls for bedroom density of 16 per acre. I'd like to remind you that not too long ago, the school district went through a gut-wrenching series of initiatives to establish equality in all of our schools, We had a long, difficult, and angry year of parents speaking and many meetings held about our eventual redistricting. Yet, not even a year after our second redistricting in 5 years, Milford is on the road to shoehorning in multiple building projects on the west side of town. I ask you, what does this mean for the schools? One project on Meadowside Road was approved, and now this one on Seaside Ave. And there are others. Where are these kids going to go to school? Will we have to face redistricting again in the near future? Think about it. Jeffrey Gordon, the developer of this project, describes us in his interview with News 8 recently. They're just frightened because this is something new and different. Well, I, for one, am not frightened. I am angry, and you should be too. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Kurt Moore, M-O-O-R-E. I actually live at 139 Rogers Avenue, not a Seaside resident per se. Lived in Milford over 40 years. And I'd like to address a couple of thoughts to the board. And you guys have a very challenging, and I say you, ladies and gentlemen, have a very challenging and difficult job. And appreciate you listening to this. And you've heard a great deal about the traffic issues. And I drive Seaside all the time. And I will say, I believe everything you've heard here tonight is absolutely factual in terms of the speed and the turns and the accidents and the difficulty of moving left or right off of Seaside Avenue to go to Meadowside or go into town. But I also ask you to think about the fact that I heard initially by the gentleman that spoke in favor and brought up a number of the issues about why this should go through, about the financial hardships. Well, I don't think it's the board's responsibility, nor is it Milford's residents' responsibility to compensate them for some financial hardships that may or may not have occurred for whatever reason they occurred. And the fact is, if they want to make the property valuable, build something that's prudent and appropriate for the area. Don't ruin the character of the neighborhood. Don't ruin the character of Milford that has been seen to have some great properties done and great development done and some very bad development done. And I want to live here for a long time, but it's very difficult to stay in a 52,000 population city that it was 40 years ago. It's the same, but it's changed. And the character's too important for you, there's a board, and the city of Milford to let go. And the other is the parking in terms of the on-site parking. I think one of the gentlemen brought that up. The last time I checked, most garages have stuff in them, not cars. And I don't see a lot of car parking space outside those garages. I also see basements in a lot of these properties, so that could be more living space. And it's a zone for single residential. When was it supposed to be zoned for a rental property and become a transient issue? Then build a hotel or a motel. Don't change the neighborhood feel, and I hope the board will take this into consideration and do the right things to make it right for the neighborhood. Thank you very much for your time.
Good evening. Thank you for having us. My name is Martin Casey. I live at 4 Amber Lane. My house, my property would be directly across the street from the driveway entrance to this proposed development. I'd first like to point out, looking through the subdivision regulations per the City of Milford Planning and Zoning, Regulation 3.2.1. Lot layout and driveway access. They are referring to the entrance to the property to be a driveway, whereas this clearly states driveways have access to a local street and not a major road carrying general traffic. As it's been stated, and we all know, Seaside Avenue, I agree with all my neighbors, is a very busy street, not a local street. It is a state highway. It is maintained by the state. It is plowed by the state. It is paved by the state. Not a local road. I'd ask you to look into that. Number two, I do agree with all my neighbors that it is a definite safety threat. And the two things that would prevent this development from going through would be that it would have to pose a hazard to public health or safety or welfare. So safety has definitely been addressed over and over, so I won't go there. I'm going to go with the threat to public health. According to the American Bar Association website, health law substantially adversely affects a local neighborhood quality of life. Then I went to Wikipedia, which said, public health incorporates and encompasses a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. So let's talk about not just sewers, not just garbage, not just that. Let's talk about the emotional and mental impact that this is having on this neighborhood, this city, this community. We're all opposed to developments that don't belong in a certain area. There is lots of room throughout the entire city of Milford for affordable housing. This is not one of those areas. It's overcrowded. You're trying to cram too many things into a small area. The mental health of the community is important. You're putting unnecessary stress, unnecessary anxiety, fear, anger, I believe were a few of the words that were dropped tonight. I implore you to not overlook, as many elected officials have, the importance of the mental health of the community. If it continues to be ignored, I mean, let's just think of examples of, I wrote names down. Mental health in the community that was ignored. Let's talk about James Holmes. Let's talk about Jared Les Logner, whatever his name was. Let's talk about Omar S. Thornton. Let's talk about Adam Lanza. Let's talk about Christopher Plaskin. Let's take accountability for the mental health of our community. Thank you.
My name's Judy Hesper. I live at 64 Meadowside Road, and I feel we do not need another street coming off the seaside. The traffic is atrocious as it is. And I have a son who is Down syndrome, who is 45, and if this road goes through, I'm going to have to tell him he cannot go down Seaside any longer, and he cannot be in that area because it will not be safe for him. And I am not going to worry every time I hear a car crash, is it one member of my family? I know of 3 pedestrians that got killed right at that bend at the telephone pole. And that telephone pole has been hit at least 6 or 7 times. And as I say, I was raised and I felt safe in Meadowside area, and that's why we're still there. But I'm losing that safety feeling. And if anything ever happened to my son, I would be so devastated. Thank you.
Good evening, members of the board. Thank you for hearing us out tonight. I know it's probably not easy on your side, as well as the anxiety that we feel on our side with this proposal going on. My name is John Longobardi. I live at 234 Seaside Avenue. Our house abuts the property, and I am part of the group. Just a few items. First off, the site, as we all have heard, it's 1.2 acres under an R12.5 zoning, which allows for single-family dwelling on lots with a minimum square footage of 12,500 square feet or 0.28 acres. On this small site, we're going to have, under this proposal, we're going to have 9 homes. That's 9 homes on 1.2 acres. Thus, each house will have 0.13 acres, and that's if the land was only used for the 9 houses. That doesn't include the 22 parking spaces, the two garage structures, and the courtyard. So when you put all that together on 1.2 acres, it you know, as someone else had said, I don't think it's going to look as neat and as tidy as it does on the plans. The traffic, and we've all touched on the traffic. 25 is the posted speed. My question would be to the traffic study guy was, how did he estimate 28 to 29? Our first year of living there, my wife got clipped pulling out of our driveway. People do speed on the road. I'm not going to beleaguer that point. In April of 2012, CONDOT completed an automatic traffic study. Their recorded data with the machines recorded 6,500 cars daily on the north side of Seaside Court, and on the south side of Meadowside Road, it was 2,900 cars daily. In 2015, where you would think the traffic would increase, the traffic study for this proposal came up with 1,022 cars during the peak periods. North of Seaside Court, 492 cars southeast of Meadowside Road, with an additional 30 or so arbitrary from Cricklewood, Seaside Court, and Amber Lane. So again, you would think when you add in, you're looking at probably 7,000 more cars when you try to add in the off-peak that this current traffic study didn't capture, which would be a pretty drastic decline from CONDOT's study back from 2012. The accidents, I won't go on about that, but it's a half-mile stretch of road. There's been 10 documented accidents in 4 years. I would think that would be an alarming statistic. They're putting up 15 townhomes that was recently approved at 335 Meadowside Road. That has to be taken into account. The traffic study does say it was taken into account, but I don't think they realize the amount of traffic flow that comes off of Meadowside onto Seaside. They stated they projected the project out to 2017 with the traffic study. My question would be what methodology was used. Did they use the most current forecasting model? It's just, it's confusing to me that they have so few cars under, a traffic study that's 3 years newer, and we know we have a lot more of a dense population down at the end. A couple of other things. It's a state road that was brought up, the width of the driveway, people clearing into the driveway. Is it wide enough, or are people going to have to be sticking out onto Meadowside when they pull in and someone's pulling out of a parking spot? The trash collection was discussed. Overflow parking. I think we should cover that one more time. There was absolutely no overflow parking provisions for this project. Are all these people that live in these 9 houses, they're never going to have any visitors or guests? Amber Lane's a private lane. There's absolutely zero parking on Meadowside or Seaside. So I don't know where everyone's going to park. And I just want to touch on some things from the Fire Marshal report. This is based on the Milford Fire Department Fire Marshal Office Plan Review Report. Water supply, it might have been added, but initially there was no fire hydrant within 400 feet, which is required under a maximum hydrant spacing of 400 feet for a single-family dwelling. Fire vehicle access, there's no turnaround for fire apparatus, required 22 feet inside radius, 50 feet or larger outside radius. Fire department access road is not at the required minimum width. It's required to have an unobstructed width of not less than 26 feet. Secondary driveways shall have a minimum width of 16 feet. No access to within 50 feet of the buildings. The requirement is an access road shall extend to within 50 feet of at least one exterior door that can be opened from the outside and that provides access to the interior of the building. And lastly, fire department road shall be designed and maintained to support imposed loads of fire apparatus and shall be provided with an all-weather driving surface. The fire lane must be usable in all-weather conditions. The fire lane cannot be on the stormwater management galleries, and in this case, I believe they're looking at the courtyard, which is where I believe their storm management system is. Plans have been approved by Fire Marshal without consideration of state Fire Marshal regulations pertaining to firm safety access. A clear difference of opinion arose with regard to the Fire Marshal Gary Baker's rejection of the plans as dated in an October 19th memo. In his letter to Jeff Gordon dated October 22nd, 2015, in which it was noted that Mr. Gordon requested that no paper trail be left, Chief Baker disagreed with Mr. Gordon as to the scope of his review of the plans insofar as he was not reviewing plans which involve single-family or two-family residences. The state's Fire Prevention Code, Section 29-291A-1, states the provision shall not apply to detached one- and two-family dwellings attached side-by-side townhouses not more than 3 stories in height, with each dwelling having a separate means of egress. Clearly, the project does not involve a site plan with such exceptions. As such, all of Chief Baker's initial concerns set forth in his October 19, 2015 memo should have been addressed, notwithstanding the applicant's mere revision of the plan to include sprinklers. Access concerns clearly are connected directly to the board's review of this plan in accordance with Section 8-30G as to public safety. And that, I believe, we all can come to an agreement on, something that we're all interested in, safety. So again, thank you very much for your time. Have a good evening.
Hi, thank you for hearing our comments. I would like to introduce myself. My name's Rocco Frank, and I live at 44 Lexington Way North in Milford, Connecticut. My interest in this project has to do with Seaside Avenue. That's where two of the greatest people I know live, and that's my mother-in-law and my father-in-law. They're both fiercely independent, 82 years old, and she's equally as old. And they like to do everything on their own. They like to go to the store on their own. They like to drive to the doctor on their own. They like to go out and enjoy walks together at Fort Trumbull at the beach on their own. And when they first bought this house 5 years ago, I was a bit concerned because they have basically a speedway there just because of the presence of the Milford Hospital emergency room. We have ambulances that go in and out of there at high rates of speed, and every single person in the Fort Trumbull area who's injured takes advantage of the fact that if there is a medical emergency, that's the one time you're allowed to go excessively fast to get to an emergency room to seek immediate care, to take care of whatever injury you might have sustained. So when I take a look at this car over here, and I think basically of two of the greatest people I know that have helped countless people through different programs, through their church, how instrumental they've been to our family and their grandchildren, it really concerns me. And, you know, I think if there's a public safety issue that really needs to be addressed, it has to do, I think, with the fact that the area in question, the density of that area can't be moved up, and we cannot have driveways that could pose a risk to people speeding to the hospital, or in a case, I heard some of the people who live in that area say that, you know, the police chases that go on at that road. So I think that, you know, you guys in the past have done a very good job in defeating a lot of these applications. I'm sorry to say that, you know, so many of them have gone to court. It would have been nice, basically, if we could defeat these things on our own merits. And I would like to say also in conclusion that I don't fault any of you, because I think the fact that we have Wheeler's Woods now before Judge Berger and the Bick Drive project before Judge Berger, that alone is over 570 units that just don't fit within the parameters of Milford, nor do they, I think, meet the criteria of health and safety issues. So I would like to commend you for ruling both those projects down. So that's all. Thank you very much.
Good evening. Don DeForge, D-E-F-O-R-G-E, 17 Meadowside Road. I bring a unique perspective as a conclusion, I guess, one more behind me, to these comments tonight. I was born in this town, raised in this town. I've been a veterinarian in this town for 44 years. I've lived in 17 Meadowside Road for 40 of those 44 years as a doctor. I've seen all of these things that they've described tonight so eloquently and explained, and I'm in favor of affordable housing, but I'm also in favor of safety. This whole issue, this board has to consider, and I know you will, I believe in the board, and I believe in every one of you, is safety. And they've talked about it, and they've talked about it very well in different situations, but I've lived through what they've talked about. It is a speed road. There's no 25 miles an hour. It's 40 to 45 with a conservative estimate. The accidents are real. I'm going to give to you a document. It wasn't very hard to find. Went down to the Milford Police Department. Over the last 6 years, I got 16 pages of accidents, motor vehicle violations, people being pulled over for speeding. It's going to be in your hands tonight. So what they're talking about, I have the real data to substantiate tonight. What wasn't mentioned is Seaside Avenue is an ambulance route. Think about this. We're going to add these homes with the number of people in them. We're going to probably increase by a minimum of 100 more visits by entrances and egresses from that street per day. And right now, there is a major problem with the police, the fire vehicles, the police cars, the ambulances that are around Milford Hospital, a place that's supposed to save our lives, not be prevented from saving our lives by overdevelopment of the area. The danger to walkers, runners, bicyclists, in what is already a heavy traveled road doesn't even have to be mentioned. It's so common sense to think about what will happen with all that extra traffic. And I know there was a traffic study here. I've heard about it, and I've listened tonight to it. But I would please ask the city of Milford, besides this group, which now is doing a wonderful thing, doing a study on their own, that the city of Milford please consider their own private study of traffic safety on this road before any decision is made concerning allowing this development to occur. I spoke to our former mayor, Fred Lisman, a few years ago. He was in my exam room. We were looking out onto Bridgeport Avenue, and there's fire trucks and ambulances, and we talked a little more, and there were more fire trucks and ambulances. I said to him, Fred, it really bothers me over the years, the amount of emergency vehicles that we've seen now needed in this city. And he looked at me, and as he always would, he would sort of take a moment to pause. He said, Don, only with careful planning by the city will it allow emergency vehicles to function in Milford and save lives. To repeat, careful planning by the city. That's why we're all here tonight. I come tonight not discouraged, but encouraged to look into your faces and to have you look carefully at the safety issues about this proposed development, 214, 224 Seaside Avenue. I know Article 830G of the Affordable Housing Act is a loophole that allows developers to tie your hands, planning and zoning boards, so these developers can find continued economic bonanzas. I call upon this board, I call upon Mayor Blake to stand up for Milford and not allow this dangerous situation to occur because of 830G. Here's the saddest thing I have to present tonight. It was alluded to a moment ago, but it was gone over very quickly. And I'm going to spend just a few moments on this because it's important. I have in my hands an official document from the fire marshal of the city of Milford. This is from Rosemarie Cologne, fire marshal clerk, to Gary R. Baker, assistant fire chief, assistant chief fire marshal, dated October 16, 2015. Here's what Rosemarie Cologne tells Assistant Chief Fire Marshal Gary Baker. On October 16, 2015, Mr. Jeff Gordon submitted site plans for 214, 224 Seaside Avenue. Mr. Gordon wanted me to inform Assistant Chief Fire Marshal Gary Baker that he preferred a phone call over a paper trail. I explained to Mr. Gordon that as part of the plan review process, all plan reviews results are delivered via email, whether they are approved or rejected. Mr. Gordon was not pleased and asked me again to inform the fire marshal that he did not want a paper trail. Response on October 22nd from Gary R. Baker, fire marshal, which you're going to have a copy of in a moment if you haven't seen this. He says to Mr. Jeffrey N. Gordon, my first concern was when my secretary, Rose Cologne, informed me that you did not want a paper trail if there were any issues with the plan. As a certified fire marshal, I am trained to document everything I review, inspect, or investigate. This is not going to change because a developer wants no paper trail. I commend Fire Marshal Gary Baker for saying that. But I want to end with one comment. If a private citizen said to the fire marshal what this developer's agent here said, what I just read to you, I do not believe it would be dismissed and placed in a file. I thank you for your consideration in stopping the development of 214, 224 Seaside Avenue, not for me, but for the safety of the adults and especially the children of this area and our city.
Good evening. I am Richard Platt of 132 Platt Lane, and I guess I'm the only one who is not from the Seaside Avenue neighborhood. I am, however, I have been a resident of Milford for 82 years, and I'm pretty familiar with its neighborhoods. And I have nothing really to add to what these good people have already said. They've already made their case, and then some. I have been involved in testifying before your board on other cases involving 830G, and this is just another one. They seem to be coming up like whack-a-mole. In any case, we got a couple of our legislators here in the audience. I know that they are getting the message in Hartford. There was a hearing today on at least one amendment to 830G, and we just got to keep on giving them the pressure. 830G was intended to be a well-intentioned piece of legislation but poorly written, or alternatively, it was intended to be a gift to developers.
If I could, I'm sorry, Martin Casey again. There was one thing that I overlooked. The traffic survey that was submitted by the developer, he stated it was taken in August of 2015. To take a snippet of one period of time over the course of a whole year doesn't give you a comprehensive look at what the traffic really is like in that area. In August of 2015, school is not in session. Most people in the neighborhood may be on vacation or away, so I would see traffic declining. I would suggest, I live on the corner of Seaside Avenue. I would set my video camera up in front of my house and compile as much traffic evidence as you want, but you may have a traffic expert from out of state, out of city. I am a Seaside Avenue expert. I've lived there for 16 years, and it's not a comprehensive traffic survey.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in opposition to the application at this time before we turn it back over to the applicant for a rebuttal? Ma'am?
Oliva, 244 Seaside Avenue. And my experience, when my daughter was coming home from school, the bus stopped across the street, and people sometimes didn't stop. I had to yell on her not to cross the street, or cross the street, I walk with her, because people would not stop. And backing out from my driveway, it's sometimes fast, sometimes it's 10 minutes. Sometimes I have to back halfway to the road to see what's happening. So to me, it's really a big safety issue. That's it.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to be heard in opposition to the application? Ma'am?
I just want to hand in the traffic police report from.
Oh, sure thing. Come on, bring it up. Last call. Anyone else in opposition before the rebuttal? Ma'am?
I just have one question. Do any one of you live in the Meadowside area? Anybody on the planning and zoning?
I'm sorry, ma'am, it's not a public question of the board period. It's public comment on the application. We all represent various districts in the city of Milford. Thank you, though. Ma'am?
Sorry, Tracy Casey again. I just want to make sure there was an Exhibit B that I forgot to mention, but I believe it was handed out. It was a copy of the map that reflects that Seaside Avenue is a state highway. So I'm sorry that I failed to mention that earlier. That one, yes. Okay?
Got it. Thank you.
For the record.
Seeing no further comment in opposition, Mr. Gordon, do you wish to offer a rebuttal?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In light of the late hour, I am going to consolidate as many of the comments that might have been repetitive in nature. I will address a couple of things that, as I said, sometimes things get emotional and aspersions get cast on certain issues. I did reach out to the fire marshal's office and asked to have a meeting with them before emails and letters went back and forth when I submitted an application, before there was a paper trail. And the reason why I did that is because people tend to handpick certain correspondence out of a file, read them out of sequence, and misrepresent, and that's why I didn't want them to do that. Particularly, we had the fire marshal doing the review as he did it was outside of his jurisdiction. We had a code reviewer, and we also reached out to the state fire marshal's office. And under the building code, under the single family code, he did not have authority to review at that level. Yet, we got a letter saying we want you to do all these different things, and technically it wasn't reviewable. When we did have a meeting, after about a half-hour meeting together with the owners, we came to a very simple resolution that if we sprinkled the buildings, all his other concerns disappeared. So we most willingly did that because we are all about safety in spite of what might be the representations of some people. So the initial report, while outlining numerous different points, was then replaced by a one-paragraph approval letter. Of course, that was not brought up by the neighbors. So I think that's a little misrepresentation and cherry-picking out a little piece of information. The other comment about a traffic study being done in August, as I've done these over the years, whatever week we do a traffic study is the wrong week because the school's not in session or there's beach traffic over here or there's something. August is a very representative time, especially in that side of town where you do get traffic down to the beach. But notwithstanding, we saw the concerns raised about that. Going to Dr. DeForge, I just want to point out that 8-30G is not a loophole. It is a planning instrument. It is a planning legislation. And when we appreciate that zoning is, the authority of zoning rests with the state. They delegate local rule for zoning. And what happens is if there's local rule that doesn't adhere to the state's policies, then the state will pull it back. And that's what 8-30G does. Partly it was done because many suburban communities had what was called exclusionary zoning. They wanted multifamily or lower cost or affordable housing to be handled by the cities. The cities have done that. The statute was meant to encourage it to be done elsewhere. It was also meant to encourage it to be done by private developers, not by city housing commissions and whatnot. So that was really the main intent of that. So, I mean, I did want to point out about if you go through the file thoroughly and you see the letter, the fire authority did approve the plan. Also, we had some comments about Amber Lane. Amber Lane is a private road, 5 houses. If those are 4-bedroom houses, then they have the same private driveway with 20 bedrooms on it than the applicant is proposing. So it's a private street, not much different according to what was given as testimony. Mr. Chair, please.
I think it's best if we don't engage each other. Yes. So, Mr. Gordon, you can direct your comments to the board, and the public will have the opportunity to speak after the applicant has a turn. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Also, we had a comment about the tenancy of one of the existing houses. A long-term resident who was evicted. Those are the aspersions that we really don't want to see in this kind of venue. I can assure the commission and I assure the public, evictions take place by a court order and they take place when there's cause. I don't want to say what the cause was because I don't want to get into the same game as what was played there beforehand. Many comments. Again, I've done a number of these affordable housing applications in the city of Milford, and everybody is for affordable housing in the right place, but this is never the right place. This is always the most dangerous road that we know of in the city of Milford, and generally speaking, we cannot handle one more vehicle on these roads. I am going to paraphrase a quote from Judge Berger at one of the trials for a recent Milford affordable housing case, when the issue of additional traffic being just too much for the road to bear, he asked Attorney Woods, are you saying basically that if my 16-year-old son gets a learner's permit on that road that he'll not be allowed to drive, or if my mother-in-law moves in with me, she can't drive until somebody moves off the street? The idea that you just can't handle any more traffic is basically a spurious point, and you might want to consider it, but it really does not bear any weight as far as the statute is concerned. Again, we have more than enough parking that meets the needs of this type of development. We are talking about two-bedroom cottages. Two-bedroom cottages do not historically bring a lot of school children into a community, but by the same token, we listen to St. Gabriel's School, Harborside Middle School, controversies about closing schools. You only wind up closing schools when the census is down. So one minute we don't want to add any more kids to the school system, and the same token we don't want to close any schools. You can't have it both ways. I'd hate to say that. Again, I understand the concern about traffic on the roads. I understand the concern. You do have a mild curve on the road, and you do have a vertical curve on the road. This driveway is an existing driveway. Our curb cut permit is the same curb cut that we have now. Consolidating the traffic to one driveway is far preferable than having 7 or 8 driveways for different houses. The density is commensurate with the immediate area, and I can assure you that you will not see a massive increase in traffic. If we consider the fact that there are 2 existing houses there, one of which is a 4-bedroom house, the additional traffic from 7 2-bedroom cottages, we're talking about maybe a dozen trips during the peak hour, and it goes back to what Judge Berger said. Are you telling me that I can't have a couple more cars on the road? That is not going to suffice, especially on a state road. State road with a hospital, a church, condominiums. If not here, where? We had one comment that putting a driveway, quoting the subdivision regulations, which don't apply here, putting the driveway onto a main road, we shouldn't do that. This is a combined driveway. Amber Lane is a private road. That's coming on to the same road. It's the same type of traffic. But again, the commentary about everybody is in favor of affordable housing. I just kind of wonder how many people have spoken in favor of an affordable housing application before this commission. Nobody ever seems to be in favor of it in their neighborhood, but it's good someplace else, maybe in another town, perhaps. Attorney Cody, do you have anything you wish to add?
For the record, David Spear again. I just wanted to reiterate that our accident data is included in the back of our traffic report. It's attachment 3. We have the data from the state and the data from the town. In the accident records, we've got multiple pages back there. I think there's 15 or 20 pages of accident data. I'd also like to point out that the counts were done in August, and the traffic study shows that it's not a capacity issue. We're talking about a dozen trips during peak hours. Those are split entering and exiting. So we're talking about less than 10 trips in any particular direction. And from a capacity point of view, you've got good levels of service that run from A to F, and the actual recorded level of service was level of service B or better at all the study intersections. So it's clearly not a capacity issue, and the sight lines are adequate for the speed limit and a little bit above the speed limit. And there are curves, vertical and horizontal curves in the road, which actually they do cause some issues with some drivers, but they also keep the speeds at a more reasonable rate than if you had no curves and you had a complete straightaway with no vertical or horizontal curves.
Thank you for your attention. Thank you very much. We'll close the presentation.
Thank you. At this point, the public has the opportunity to speak again. First, again, those in favor of the application, and if there are none, those in opposition have the opportunity to rebut the rebuttal presented by the applicants. And again, basically under the same rules, I'd ask that you limit your comments to what was raised in the rebuttal, and also please, because of the late hour, if you've already made a point, it's not necessary to come up and make it again. We have all very detailed notes, and we appreciate and paid very close attention to everything everyone has had to say. But please don't let that limit your ability to come up and rebut the rebuttal. Thank you.
Tracy Casey, CASCY. Just a couple comments. I think the majority of the people who spoke about traffic issues, the speed that is encountered daily, that we as the residents at that area experience. There was no rebuttal to that. They talked about a traffic study being done, but no rebuttal to the actual experiences that the people who live there have. Secondly, actually many of us got up and talked about supporting affordable housing, and I have to tell you, I'm a lay minister in training with St. Mary's Parish, and I'm actually in a program working for people who need housing. $1,100 a month is not affordable housing. If you take $1,100 a month, which is what I believe the cost would be for the ones that are designated as affordable, do the math. Affordable housing, people who are struggling have a hard time making $500 a month in payments. So I share with you that I think we really need to look at what is affordable housing and what are we really intending to do here. Finally, two other comments. The only reason the comment was made about the former tenant was because the plea at the beginning of the applicant's comments was about the former tenant's health. And things were put into the record that we, as friends of the former, well, the owner, although it's not her that's taking this forward, we know her directly and have facts. And so I think there's a whole bunch of stuff that we won't get into now, but aren't necessarily being accurately described. Finally, I just want to comment on a case law here, specifically in the case of, sorry, I just lost my page. Stefani versus Darien Planning and Zoning Commission in Connecticut. Issues were raised among things including major safety concerns. And what the court found was that, I'm going to quote, and it's in the packet that you already have, the commission decision addressed that approval could be modified in accordance with statutory ability under Section 830G1D for the Zoning Commission to dictate such modifications. In hearing the plaintiff applicant's appeal of the modified approval, the court clearly stated that a zoning commission has a right to put conditions on an approval or to deny an application in the presence of a finding that these safety concerns outweigh, as in the case of Darien, the need for affordable housing. This case serves as precedent for the notion that a board is not bound to, quote, rubber stamp, approve a project as long as the record and evidence presented at the public hearing demonstrate these issues to be relevant. As I mentioned in my initial comment, we have retained a safety expert. We're not asking you to just listen to us. We're asking you to give you an opportunity to put forward another expert's input as to the safety study that has been done. And I don't know what your process is to let us know that you are giving us the right to bring that forward. My understanding is your next likely hearing on this would be March 15th, and we will be prepared to have that on March 15th. So I don't know how you respond to that, but I would appreciate if someone could comment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Rocco Frank again. I don't know if I need to restate my address again for the record or not, but if I do, it's 44 Lexington Way North. I just wanted to rebut the good attorneys over here who use the word capacity. I don't think really this is a capacity issue. I mean, from what I heard and from what I saw presented to you, it's a health and safety issue. When I look at these photos over here, clearly that's got nothing to do with the road being full. It's got to do with the conditions on the road from having additional hazards from a driveway, which really shouldn't be on a main road that goes into a hospital route. So I just wanted to remind you guys to take a look at the evidence that's been submitted here that's before you, and realize that from what I heard and saw, but I might be wrong, I don't think anyone said the road was going to be too full, so that's a problem. Thank you.
Don DeForge again, 17 Meadowside Road. Just briefly, I feel it quite amazing that in the rebuttal that there was a question of a pastor as well as a veterinarian's belief in affordable housing and how he could judge such a thing. I believe in his belief in economic development. I know that's why he's here tonight. I'm here because I care. I've cared about people for many years. I've helped the indigent. And the issue is safety. That man that not many people even know in the audience, Mr. Platt, you all know him. He's an icon in this town historian. He's done so much. He would come at his age to this meeting to stand up for this issue nowhere near where he is living, I think is amazing. And I think he should get a round of applause, Mr. Platt, for coming here tonight. And just finally, we're going to put miniature garbage trucks on this street to get the garbage. Where are they going to find the miniature fire trucks to go in back of the miniature garbage trucks once the fires occur in these buildings? It's absurd to say sprinklers are going to cover the issue. You need fire apparatus that can easily enter and egress that area. That's not been shown tonight. Senator Schlossberg spent today working towards changes in 830G. I'm not going to lecture it to you. You all know what it is, as he just lectured to us, that thinking we don't understand 830G. I commend Senator Schlossberg for what she's doing, and I hope the board will look carefully at this issue. Thank you very much.
Hi, Martin Casey again. I just wanted to address something that was brought up in rebuttal by Mr. Gordon. He quoted a judge who said that the volume of traffic, if his son or mother-in-law or whatever it was, unless somebody moved, he quoted the volume of traffic. I don't think any person in the room here made mention that the volume of traffic was the reason you should deny this proposal. Our reason is the safety. We know that there's a high volume of traffic. We're not disputing that. We're not he's actually making our case for us. The volume of traffic is the reason that it should be denied. Many cars as you want can drive down Seaside. It's unsafe. The driveway that he's talking about is a driveway for a single-family house. That driveway goes in behind the one single-family house, not both houses. It was designed for a single-family house. Amber Lane across the street is a street. It has a stop sign. It has street width. It can allow a fire truck to come in and turn around, which they do on occasion. I don't think anybody's arguing about the volume of traffic. We're telling you that it's just not safe.
Good evening. My name is Gail Schlossberg. I live at 14 Honeysuckle Lane, and I am the state senator for the city of Milford. And it is my honor and my pleasure to be here in front of you today, and just first to acknowledge the wonderful work of the people who have come today and organized to share with you what their concerns are and to stay within what they believe and what I believe are the bounds of the law that they can bring before you. And you can see that they are well organized, they've done their homework, they've got a lot of evidence, and I know that you will think carefully about what they've said. I was not planning on speaking this evening because they did such a good job of presenting their case. However, I feel compelled, given that Mr. Gordon, to rebut a number of Mr. Gordon's comments. First of all, I am a legislator. My job, amongst other things, is to address legislation, to look at the law, to change the law, to interpret the law, and to follow the law. So I'm really uncomfortable when Mr. Gordon, where this has happened before, stands up and lectures everybody else on the law. I will tell you he got one thing right. One thing he said was that this law was put in place after the housing boom in the 1980s, largely because there wasn't much housing, and suburban towns, many towns, put in exclusionary zoning laws. People couldn't participate in housing. We don't have exclusionary zoning laws in Milford. We have zones that are for high-density, multifamily housing. We even have an affordable housing zone. When this law was put into place, it also contemplated not a boon for for-profit developers. It spoke greatly about nonprofit organizations that were trying to bring affordable housing, working family housing, to communities that had none. This was never intended to be a carte blanche for private developers to come into towns and do whatever they chose to do. Which brings me to my second point. When we're talking about safety, you all know that's well within the purview of your area of review. And all you need to do is listen to the evidence that's before you and then make a decision. I find it very challenging when an applicant stands up and tells you that the other people who are speaking, the people who live there, who have lived there, for people like Dr. DeForge, who's been there for over 40 years, that their concerns about traffic are spurious. That's for you to decide. That's not for him to decide. That's for you to decide. You are the fact finder. I find myself quite angry, quite frankly, when he casts aspersions on the community of St. Gabe's Church and that school closing, which has absolutely nothing to do with anything that is going on this evening. And it is consistent with the negative aspersions that have been cast on this community by private for-profit developers that come one after the other and try to characterize our community as anything but what it is: a warm, welcoming, blue-collar, hard-working, kind and caring community. So finally, I'd just like to share with you one last thing. And that is, again, Mr. Gordon said he's never heard anybody stand up in favor of an affordable housing development. Well, I would recall to your memory, if you can, and maybe Mr. Gordon isn't aware of this, one of the finest examples in our state of affordable housing is when this community came together with a nonprofit developer to save nearly 200 residents from Ryder Park who were being evicted and thrown out of their home from a large global corporation who sought for profit to throw them out of their lifelong homes and put them out on the street. And how did this community respond? We got together, City Hall and community and nonprofit developer, and we found them the money, we found them the land, we changed the zoning laws, and we found them a place to live that exists today, which is, by the way, 75% affordable for families under 80%, under 60%, and many of them, or some of them, living on Social Security. And it is a beautiful and shining example of what happens when a community comes together. It is the finest, affordable, manufactured mobile home park in this state. And it happened in Milford. And we should be proud of that. And I will not stand in this community and let anybody come here and cast aspersions on the good people of the city of Milford. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that wishes to be heard in opposition to the applicant's rebuttal? Mr. Gordon, at this point, do you wish to speak to respond to the points just raised by the public? You have that opportunity if you wish.
Just a couple of clarifying points. My comments regarding St. Gabriel's and Harborside School was to a comment about where are the kids going to wind up going to school with these affordable housing projects. And my comment was that if you don't have children in your community, schools do get shut down. I don't understand how the good senator could in any way say that that is casting aspersions at the people of St. Gabriel's or Harborside. I'm just saying that if you don't have kids in your community, schools close. I don't think there's anything. Mr. Chairman? And as far as my comment that was something, when I said something was spurious, it was basically taking letters out of context from the fire department's file. I was not talking about anything else. I certainly understand people have concerns about traffic. I continue to call the Commission's attention to Exhibits C and D, which show the driveways which back out onto Seaside Avenue. Those are hazardous. If you don't have a turnaround and you're going to back out onto that road, I understand that that's hazardous on a horizontal and a vertical curve. We're not proposing that. Thank you.
Mr. Sulkus, at this point, would it be appropriate to ask the board for anything in preparation for the next meeting that they wish to have prepared?
Yes.
Does anyone on the board have a question or a comment or a suggestion as to supplemental materials that the commission can have prepared for our use in to supplement anything
Yes.
provided by the public? Mr. Quish?
Yeah, we do have the right to ask for a peer review or additional traffic study. I did hear that the community was doing that, and I don't know if it's redundant, but there is a mechanism in place to have that paid for, that the community does not have to pay for it. Does not have to pay for it, so that might be appropriate.
Does anyone else wish to be heard on that? Mr. Lutz?
Yeah, I would agree that since the situation seems to revolve heavily around traffic safety, that for us to have our own traffic safety person take a look at it would make sense, and perhaps to ask that person to specifically look at emergency vehicles, okay, which was brought up today, as well as try to get some idea of the traffic speeds, since we seemed to have different views on that.
Mr. Sulkus, do we need a vote to arrange that through your office?
Well, I just want to clarify something first. We have typically done peer reviews, which is reviewing the materials that have been generated by the applicant. So that's one kind of review. Mr. Lutz is asking for an entirely different kind of review. He's asking for an actual traffic study where we're hiring someone to go out and look at traffic, look at a whole bunch of things. It's a whole different kind of study. So you'd have to make it clear what you'd want done.
Now, that was my understanding, Mr. Quish, that you were looking for as well, correct?
Yeah, I did use the term peer review, but I think Mr. Lutz articulated it better.
Would we need a vote to make that formal request that your office obtain a traffic study?
Yes, you would have to. I think that would be a good thing to have.
Okay. Does anyone wish to make a motion as to retaining that expert? Mr. Lutz?
Yeah, I motion that we hire an expert to do a traffic study on Seaside Avenue and perhaps also on the short side of Meadowside Road there, and specifically ask in that traffic study for a look at traffic speeds as well as the emergency vehicles.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Mr. Mead, is there any discussion on the motion before we vote? Mr. Moore?
Quick discussion in regards to the purpose of having this traffic study. If we're not going to have sign-off from law enforcement based on these type of traffic studies, it would seem mute if it's a sign, if the police commission is going to sign off on it. We would still have to go ahead with this application if they do sign off on it without this traffic study.
Is there any further comment from the board? Mr. Lutz?
Yeah, typically, prior to this board, I served on another board that sent me to a lot of educational sessions. And one of them was on law as opposed to boards for land use. And typically, the courts today would say if an expert comes to a land board like ours and takes a position, unless there's another expert that questions that position, okay, that the court will probably rule in favor of the expert that gave the testimony. So since we have an expert giving a specific position, the only way we can counter that and expect it to stand up if it was challenged would be to have another expert take a look at it.
Any further comment? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion? Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes. Mr. Sulkus, if you could be so kind as to arrange that. That said, Mr. Sulkus, what, if anything, do we need to do about keeping the hearing open or extending the hearing to obtain that type of study? I'd imagine that's not a quick process.
It won't be a quick process, but I'll move as quickly as I can to find someone to do it. The hearing would have to remain open. I don't have in front of me the dates of when this hearing had to close. I know this hearing had been opened and continued, so we may have an issue with the deadline for closing the hearing, which would require that the applicant give us an extension of time.
I have April 4th on the agenda. Does that...
We opened this, no, we didn't, this one we didn't open. Okay, so we're good. So we have till April 4th, and if we have to, we can get an extension.
Okay, so then would it make sense to continue this matter until April 4th? April 5th meeting.
Yeah, we'll need, we would need an extension from the applicant for April 5th.
Mr. Gordon, would you be willing to agree to an extension at this time? How much time would you need to do that? Thank you very much. So, Mr. Sulkus, then we can put the meeting, or put the matter over at least until the next meeting, the 15th, April 15th, then to
March 15th. Yeah,
March,
I mean,
March 15th,
yeah, you
then
can
to put the
yeah.
Put the extension on the record, or the lack of consent for the
right
on the record.
Yeah.
Okay. But at that point, at that meeting, at that March 15th meeting, we won't be taking any public comment.
That would be correct.
Okay. But would you suggest if the neighbors have their Mr. Hua's study ready, if they submit it, that would, I would imagine, be of assistance in to whomever we select?
If our office is notified that they have a traffic study that's ready to go, you know, again, the public hearing is still open, and if the board wants to, it could take in that that presentation on the 15th.
I would invite the members of the public who have discussed obtaining the traffic study to have that, if they can, as soon as possible. And if they are able to have it at the 15th, to please contact the planning office.
You'll have it by the 15th.
Yes, Mr. Gordon? Will Mr. Hua be here at the next meeting when you present the traffic study?
So is this confirmed that we will hear from Mr. Wah on the 15th? As part of Mr. Quish's comments, and I fully appreciate the desire for us not to have to pay for this, but we're willing to. But for every additional hearing he has to attend, we have to pay more money. So if the 15th is confirmed, he will be here on the 15th.
Mr. Sulkus, in your opinion, does it make more sense to do that step by step on the 15th, to hear from the neighborhoods expert, and then at a later date hear from the expert commissioned by the board?
We could do it either way. I mean, if you want to have a whole night of traffic consultants, in April, we can do that. I think it's going to be important to the applicant to have a chance to see whatever we come up with and whatever the neighborhood has come up with, so they have a chance to, rebut it just as they're able to do with, the study that's already been done.
Very good. Mr. Quish?
I mean, it may make sense to hear what the neighborhood traffic expert has to say. If it answers all our questions, then it would be redundant to hire our own. Maybe we should postpone actually hiring someone, maybe get some prices or gauge some interest. But if we feel fully satisfied that the information we're getting from the neighborhood expert, then it would be kind of silly to pursue a third look.
Mr. Lutz?
Yeah, I tend to agree. The problem is a timing problem. In other words, if we hold off for 2 weeks trying to find a traffic expert and get it done, we're not going to get it done by the time frame that we have to get it done in. Okay, so in other words, we're at that. I think we're at that point saying we either have to move forward with it or not.
I would have to imagine, and please let me know what you think, Mr. Sulkus, that if we have the neighbors bring their expert, Mr. Hua, on the 15th, and then that would allow the applicant to provide a rebuttal on the meeting on April 5th as to Mr. Provided that the hearing is extended. The board then would have the opportunity to revisit the decision that it made this evening, asking your office to obtain the traffic study. Is that fair to say?
You can do that. Well, two things. First, you may or may not remember that we actually hired Mr. Wah for a previous review, so I have confidence that whatever he presents, will be of a good quality. If you want to see what he is going to present on the 15th, and then at that time you decide, well, you want a third opinion, then we're going to end up in a time crunch. We will have a time crunch to get that person to do the kind of study that you're talking about that would be done, and I don't honestly believe it would be done for that at that point 15 days later for our first meeting in April.
Sir, Mr. Mead?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you, Mrs. Casey, is your traffic expert going to do his own study or just review his paperwork? If he's going to do his own separate study, then we can go with his report. But if he's just going to review what's already been presented, then I think we should have our own.
He's doing a combination of work. He's reviewing what's been presented, but he's also going to then look at what's presented and provide his own additional study. So it's not another full study, but it's not just commenting on the study that was done. Does that make sense? And again, I just need to say, we are a small community group paying for this, and every time we have to bring him back, we have to pay more money. So to hear, well, rebut in another meeting, that's just going to keep adding costs. And we're doing our best, but if we could try to do it at one meeting, it would be really appreciated.
Mr. Quish.
So I guess the question is, will the study that you're commissioning answer the questions that Mr. Lutz had? Will it do a speed study? Will it actually measure how far above the posted speed limit people are going? I think that's the question that we want to answer, to then compare that to the sight lines and to look at emergency vehicles.
It was not going to do another speed study. It was going to be responsive to that study with additional work done. If that would reach.
So then I would say let's go ahead with our study and do the speed study. We voted for it.
I suppose the board could revisit that after hearing from Mr. Hua on the 15th, but I do believe that we do have a motion that's already been passed. Mr. Marlowe.
Question, Mrs. Casey. How far along is he with his report? Has he started it as of yet?
So we retained him. We've sent him documentation, and he's begun the work. How far along he is, I can't talk to.
Is it possible, Mr. Chairman, to have the board supplement what he's doing to get what we're looking? He's already done half of, or something. Why don't we just supplement what he's doing? And because he hasn't finished it yet.
So if you want clarity on what we've sent him the full traffic study, and we've sent him the pictures of the plans, the site development plan. So that's what we've sent him.
I guess what I'm asking is just if the board is looking for certain things out of a traffic study, if you've already hired him, he's already done a lot of the legwork, why can't the board just ask him to do this full study?
Mr. Sulkus, what would your take be on that? I have my own.
My
but I'd
first
like to hear
reaction
yours.
is the ordinance that gives you the power to put together a study doesn't give you the power to pay for someone else's study. It has to be your study under your control, and it has to be implemented the way that it is called for by ordinance. So we would have to be getting, I'd have to be getting estimates from people, finding out, if there's any conflicts, no conflicts. I'd have to get money up front from the applicant based on the estimates. We have to set up an account, so it's not as casual as, well, someone else is doing a study, we think it's okay, let's throw some money at it. That's not the process.
Understood. Well, it looks like we have a framework in place that the neighborhood group is going to have Mr. Hua appear here on the 15th with his report, and based on the action we took this evening, that we've directed Mr. Sulkus to obtain our own traffic study pursuant to the ordinance. And I think that, does that take care of this agenda item for the evening, Mr. Sulkus? Do I need to do anything more formal?
No, I don't think you have to do anything more formal. I mean, the item is going to be obviously continued.
All right, so the issue, the applicant for 224 Seaside Avenue, we're going to pick that back up on the March 15th meeting with regard to the neighborhood group opposition traffic study. Thank you very much for coming. We have more business to attend to this evening. You're always certainly welcome to stay and watch, but I ask that you please not be loud leaving the building. In that it's 11 o'clock p.m., we have to ask for a 15-minute extension of the meeting. Does anyone wish to make a motion in that regard? Mr. Mead, is there a second? Mr. Moore, all in favor? Aye. Aye, that passes. We have an additional 15 minutes. Our next agenda item is F, the liaison reports. I had asked at the last meeting that the membership let me know which city commissions or boards to which they'd like to be the liaison. And Mr. Quish indicated he'd like to be the liaison to the Police Building Committee, and Mr. Mead would like to remain the liaison to the Police Commission. Is there anyone else that wishes to express an interest in a commission liaison appointment at this time? Mr. Nichol.
Yeah, I would like to attend a inland wetland meeting, which is tomorrow night, to see how that goes. If there's a interest there, I'd probably like to go on that committee as a lead.
Thank you. Are we all set? Thank you. Okay, Tom Nichol has indicated an interest in attending the inland wetland meeting tomorrow, and as stated, Ed Mead would like to serve as the liaison to the Police Commission, and Jim Quish to the Police Building Committee. I certainly think that is great. I appoint all three to those respective boards and commission liaison positions. Is there anyone else that wishes to express an interest this evening? You still have a chance in subsequent meetings, but if you're interested, please let me know now. Seeing none for tonight, we're going to start with those three. Anyone else, please let me know. It doesn't have to be during a meeting. You can send me an email. Next on the agenda is the Regulation Subcommittee, which reminds me that we have to put an effective date for the changes to the regulations, and I believe March 18th would be the appropriate date. Mr. Grant, is there any additional report of the Regulation Subcommittee?
Yes, you have before you, if you remember last meeting, I made mention that basically the way our zoning regulations are set up, somebody coming in for a coastal area site plan would also have to come back in and do a site plan, so they would actually have to show up twice. So I suggested to the board that we do some wording that would basically allow them to come in at one time, which would expedite and help the citizens to get their projects done in a quicker manner. You have tonight a proposed text addition that basically will do that. It basically just says that if you're coming in for a coastal area management site plan, at the same time provide the information for a site plan, and we can do the whole thing in one shot, which is what the board has been doing in the past for a long time. So I'd like to make a motion to approve and this regulation addition.
Mr. Sulkus, can we do that during the report, or should that be added to the agenda for new business?
If I understand what you want to do, you want to approve it so for it to be circulated so you can ultimately have a public hearing on it.
Correct.
Okay. Do we need to vote on that?
It never hurts.
Mr. Grant has made a motion to have that reviewed before circulation. Is there a second? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? The motion passes. Anything additional, Mr. Grant?
Not at this time.
Next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes for the February 16th, 2016 meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Mr. Marlowe and Mr. Grant with a second. All in favor? Aye. The motion passes. Chair's report. I do not have a report this evening. Staff report. Mr. Sulkus, do you have a report?
Not this evening.
Thank you. And I believe that is the end of the agenda. Does anyone wish to make a motion to adjourn? Mr. Mead, is there a second? Mr. Quish, all in favor? Aye. We are adjourned.